Greetings and welcome to the 4th episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense Anime Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us on Twitter to find the latest information on this podcast. Today we're getting really deep into this winter season's anime and we cut a lot of mediocre shows, so we'll go more in depth on the shows we're really enjoying. My name is Leo and I just ate some expired tuna fish and now I have the breath of the wild. Also, tonight with me I have Bcom.
I already started laughing in the intro.
That's totally fine.
I just love making you say that like really just horribly terrible joke. It's just like so corny.
The intros are like some of my favorite part.
Yeah, I love the intros to the show. It's good stuff.
All right,
so let's jump in. We cut a lot of the chaff last week, like you said, so we don't have as many shows to talk about this week. So let's start with Sunday, and of course, still the best show of the season by far, objectively, is Nyanko Days.
Out of 2-minute episodes.
This is true. I'm not watching any other shorts right now. Maybe there are some other worthwhile ones, but this is the one I'm watching.
I really only noticed this one because you brought it up, so yeah.
Yeah. I think I've brought this up to way too many people. But,
Are you forcing it on people?
Yeah, I'm like forcing, like I'm a Nyanko Days evangelist on Twitter.
Well, I just I've been forcing interviews with Monster Girls on Triad, trying to get her to watch it, and she's now currently starting to watch it.
Oh, good.
Like, I've been doing it all week.
Well, that's cute. All right, so Nyanko Days, let's start with the episode title, because it's like they heard what I was saying a couple weeks ago about how every episode needs to have cats in it, or else they're just screwing up. So the episode 7 title is The Cat's Day, and we're going to talk about episode 8 too, and episode 8's title is The Cat's Day 2. So I'm like already like, I'm like, this is going to be the best arc of the season. You're just way too excited
for the show, man.
So basically, jumping into episode 7, the cat girls are playing around at the house, basically. But Yuko's not home, and like so they're lonely without her. So they're like, oh, let's do things that Youjo does. And so they try to like write with a pen, but like they rip the page that they're writing on because like they didn't like put the like didn't like click the top of the pen to like put the tip out, so it like rips the paper apart. And they were like, oh, let's draw with something easier like a marker. And then like they're trying to open it, but they can't get the cap open. It's like really hard for them because they're so small.
Right. So of course when it pops off, it flies over and like it
right in
the face and just puts this big mark.
It's like a big green mark. That animation actually looked like really dumb, but it kind of added to the humor.
Yeah.
And so finally they're like, oh, let's just do some reading. So like Ro and Ma are like gonna read, but Ma is really dumb and she can't read kanji, so she asks Ro to help her. But she's reading like a romance manga, so Rose starts reading it and then just gets like really like flustered and her face gets all red and she starts like steaming from her head, and that was basically the entire episode. And then like Ma has like a Chinese artichoke shirt this time around.
And after the end credits, they just do a real quick skit of like, well, let's try some of the Yuko snacks, you know? And like they get like dried scallops or something and they rip the package open and they're like eating it and they don't like it. They're like, ooh, and they just leave it there. And this show likes to do like real life cat shit.
Yeah.
And that's something that I would come home to, would be a package of something totally random, ripped open, laid everywhere. Some of them half chewed on, but nothing eaten.
And that like is a direct segue into what happens at the end of next episode. But so the episode 8 starts off with Ro and Ma like wanting to watch TV. And so Ro turns on the TV, and because she's such like a prim and proper cat girl, she's watching like the news, like world news, and like Ma is just like sitting there like
like the boredom's going to kill her.
Yeah, so she like rips the controller away, and she turns the channel to like kitty calisthenics. There's like a kitty calisthenics channel, which is ridiculous.
Well, this being in Japan, that's totally believable.
Oh God, I mean, I can't even imagine the ratings such a channel would get. Like if you look at like the Puppy Bowl during the Super Bowl and stuff, like, yeah, oh my God. So they get into like a cat fight on the ground. They're battling over the controller, and she gets really upset because like they're now like really angry and not talking to each other. So she is trying to be like the deal maker between them, the mediator. And so, but like she can't get them to like come back together. They're too pissed off. But Yuko comes home and she like runs to the door again, like the same way they did in the first episode, where it's like you only see her ears coming towards the camera, and then she jumps. And it was a little, I liked seeing that shot again because it's so good. Like I made a gif of it the first time I saw it and like posted it to Twitter and everything. But also they like reused like the same exact animation, so I was kind of a little bit upset about that. Like it's such a short show, like do something a little bit different. But anyway, she jumps on jumps up on her. She's like starts crying because she like can't make them happy, and Yuko saves the day because like she brought home with her like one of those two-sided like cat tunnel things, and so like Ro and Ma see this and they just like jump in it immediately, and then they like forget everything they were fighting about and they apologize to each other. Everything is okay again. Just like every episode of Nyanko Days, it's like any conflict is solved in like 3 seconds.
Until after the episode where you see Yuko look around the room and see it's completely destroyed from their shenanigans the last 2 episodes. She's just like, oh my God. And my 2 cats are currently doing that in the other room, so I know what I get to do after we're done recording.
After the podcast.
Gosh.
So that's Nyanko Days. So let's move on to Little Witch Academia, episode 7. So this is the episode that starts off with Akko like in class, and like one of her teachers is like giving this like crazy like talk. She's like trying to scare the students basically, and then like Akko is just like listening, and like as soon as the teacher finishes talking, she like raises her hand. She's like, "Is this gonna be on the test?" And everybody else like knows it's like it was kind of like a joke, but the teacher's like, "Yes, it'll be on the test."
Yeah, and it's just another episode of like Akko being useless again.
Yeah.
And it just keep going and I'll interject, but she's not getting any better.
Yeah, like so she's still like getting terrible grades, so she gets chewed out by like the mean like teacher. She's not the headmistress, but she's like the assistant to the headmistress or something, it seems like. Professor Finneran. And she like, you know, Ursula is supposed to have been like privately teaching Akko, so Finneran like yells at her for like not doing a good enough job because she's making like no improvement. And then there's like a bunch of tests that are coming up, and so Ursula is gonna like try and prepare Akko for each of these tests, but she just like keeps failing all of them. And like during like the astrology test, like Diana's turn comes up and she goes to the front of the class and she uses her astrology to like predict Akko's like future, and she sees that Akko is going to depart from Luna Nova. So then everybody says that like, oh, she's getting like kicked out of the school. Like this makes so much sense. Like she's failing out of the school. And so, but she's like threatened with expulsion if she doesn't pass her final exam. So like this like could come true. And her final exam is like magic philosophy. This is really funny because the magic philosophy teacher is like a goldfish called Professor Pisces, and he just like when she's sitting in class, she just sees him like making bubbles, like opening and closing his mouth, and just making like popping sounds. But and she thought like it was just like the easiest class ever. They were just like sitting there like just listening to this goldfish do nothing. But it turns out Professor Pisces was actually speaking a goldfish language that everybody else in the class is like an honors student and they can like understand it.
They can hear her. And Akko can't hear anything. She just thought it was like a study period or something.
Exactly. So like they're talking about like high level philosophical concepts, and Akko's just sitting there like, what? Like she had to ask like a student next to her like what was going on, and like she tried to explain it and then it went completely over Akko's head.
Yeah, isn't there like a whole scene where like Akko's actually like really, really trying to study hard, and
but she just like can't do it. She's like too dumb for this.
Yeah,
stuff.
and like there's like they're like in the cafeteria scene, and because I thought it was kind of funny, something or another happens, and they're like I forget what. Oh, they're going to go watch a movie or something. And she's like, no, I gotta go study, and they're all like looking at her like she's crazy, and Amanda is like suspecting Sucy of feeding her some funky mushrooms. She asks her that, and I was like, that's hilarious. She's like, what did you feed her this time?
Well, Amanda's a smart one. She's got good intuition, because that's definitely something Sucy would do. So Akko's like at a loss. She doesn't know how she's going to pass this test and stay in the school, so she decides she's going to try and cheat. So she goes to Professor Pisces, and she's going to suck up to him by pouring some mineral water into his like fish bowl.
It's a her, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm not actually sure. Let's call
it. They had
it,
like a fancy wig hat or something.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. Yeah, I can't remember from the episode if they said like it was a he or she at any point. I have to go back and look. But anyway, like into the fishbowl, but like Professor Pisces like almost dies because the water is just like not good for him or her. I can't tell. So it's a fish. Like as Professor Pisces is struggling to like breathe, like Akko like runs the fishbowl over to like a bathroom and then like dumps it down like a toilet or a sink or something, and Professor Pisces gets flushed out to like the lake. So Akko's like, oh god, what
typical
do I do?
Akko.
Yeah. So Akko and Lotte and Sucy go and like turn themselves into fish so they can like swim around the lake and try to find Professor Pisces. Except Akko's transformation goes slightly wrong, of course, and she turns herself into like a mer person, like a mermaid almost, but like a merman. But it's like closer to a fish. Like she doesn't look like
just
Ariel
a half fish or something like that.
Yeah, she's like a half fish. And they come across like a cage at the bottom of the lake that's clearly like a fisherman is using to like poach fish from. And so like there's a bunch of fish trapped down there, and there's this one like dumb fish, and it's the one I think Akko heard that like drew her over, that has like a whole family of fish with her.
Yeah, she can suddenly understand fish after she does her transformation.
Yeah, something went like slightly wrong, and now she can understand fish language. But like I liked this one scene where the fish is like, this is my mom and my dad and my brother, my sister, my cousin, and my brother. like even the fish like was getting confused because like they all look exactly the same.
Yeah.
And so, but like Akko like swims up to the surface to the boat where the fisherman is, and like jumps up like on like to the side of the boat and is like, get the hell out of here, like you can't fish here anymore. And like so this guy has like, he's like terrified because a fish is yelling at him. And so anyway, they find Professor Pisces. He was actually trapped in that school of fish in that cage. So like they rescue him, and they all come back to the school. And as soon as they get back, Professor Finneran is there, and she like screams at Akko
because she got her picture taken.
Yeah. So like they're getting like news about them, and so yeah. First of all of a sudden Akko has like learned the fish language, and so like Finneran is yelling at. They're all in like the head mistress's office, and like Finneran's like, they gotta like expel her. Like this is like the last straw. And like she's like clearly like a useless student, and there's this great moment where Ursula like gets up in like Finneran's face and is like, no, like why are we judging her just on her like academic ability? How about how much she's grown since she's gotten here?
Yeah, it's a pretty good little spiel she has.
Yeah, like, and Finneran's like scared because like Ursula's like really fiery and passionate, which was cool to see. I like to see them like defending each other like that. And then it turns out that like they got a call from like an environmental protection agency or something in the area. And it's like all of the fish were like endangered that Akko saved. Yeah. So like they want to talk to the student that like saved the fish because she's like a local hero now. So
yeah, and they want to give her a reward and something like that. So now they obviously can't expel her because
yeah. But they still punish her because like she was originally trying to cheat on her test.
Yeah.
So, but she doesn't get expelled. So that's how the episode ends.
And then the teacher gives her an A anyways.
Yeah.
The fish teacher, Pisces, whatever.
Pisces, yeah. So
yeah, the one thing. I mean, the episode was fine, but there was one little thing I didn't like. Like Akko, it wasn't like she was really trying to get better at magic. It seemed more to me that she was just expecting it to suddenly happen. She would just suddenly be better.
Yeah, she kind of seems like the way she'll get better is like from just sheer willpower and just like gritting her teeth and like yelling for things to happen, like,
and not like actually doing some study or something. But then at the end of this episode, that's exactly what happens.
Yep.
She just suddenly gets better. I was like, it's not very good as a lesson, but
yeah,
whatever.
At this point we're like 7 episodes in, so I'm wondering if we should ever expect Akko to like become more like nuanced about the way she goes about trying to solve problems, or if she's always just going to be like gritting her teeth and running headfirst into things, and that's just who she is and why she's like special. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the next episode, so I watched this episode before Leo did, and I got really excited because this episode is very much about Sucy. So I like told Leo, I texted him like, "This is the Sucy episode we've all been waiting for." Like,
and I'm like, "Yeah, it's not." I do like a little fist pump, and then it's not till like a couple days later I finally get to watch it.
Yeah,
it's not a Sucy episode.
So, well, it's like all about Sucy though. I mean, come on.
But she's not even in it.
Yeah, she's barely in it because basically, so this episode starts out with Sucy doing one of her evil experiments in the dorm room.
Or is it all in Akko's head?
Oh, that's a good question, actually.
With the way it ends, the way it ends is just, was it all in Akko's head? Was it not? Did the beginning even happen? Did she dream it all? But wait, Sucy seems to know somehow about this. So what happened? What went? It's how they wrote it. There's really no answer.
I finally got my wish, though. This is like the Little Witch Psychedelia episode. So Sucy's doing an experiment. She's like going to drink this potion that she's conjured up.
Energy potion.
Yeah, it's energy potion. And she's like, oh, she's about to drink it, and then she's like the drip is like hanging from like the decanter or whatever. And then like at the last second, she's like, you know what? Maybe I should try this on my guinea pig. And she goes and like opens up Akko's like,
I love this scene,
sleeping mouth, and she just pours like the entire beaker into.
No. You skipped my favorite part.
Oh yeah, you go. Yeah.
She doesn't pour it in her mouth.
What does she do?
She goes to do it, and then she's like, wait, if where's my quotes? I wrote this down. I know I did. It got lost in my rant somewhere. She goes to pour it in there, and then she thinks to herself, she goes, wait, if this potion actually works, then Akko will actually become a competent witch.
Yeah.
And she's like, that would be boring. So she downs the whole thing herself.
Oh, you're right. Oh my God. I can't believe I forgot
she downs the whole
that.
thing herself, and that's when she goes into like her like comatose. Then Akko and
Akko Lotte like wake up the next morning, and like she's sleeping like very peacefully, but she won't wake up on her bed.
She's sleeping like a vampire with her arms across her chest.
Yeah, so they're like getting ready to go to class, but then like Lotte's like, no, like something's wrong here. Like we have to do something, or else we're gonna get in trouble again. Like what if it's like one of her experiments that went wrong, and what if we get in trouble? Like we've been in trouble so many times, we might actually get expelled this time.
And this whole time, mushrooms are starting to grow inside the whole room, and that's why they're really panicking. They're like, oh no, the mushrooms are gonna take over the whole class. We got to take care of this. And then Lotte says something about having to go into like her mind, Sucy's mind or something like that. So she reads something on a book, and it's really funny because she does like this, like it's just gibberish spells or something.
Yeah.
And then like a bat comes out of her wand, and she smashes it across the back of Akko's head.
Yeah, and then Akko gets like knocked into like Sucy's mind, and she's like, "Ow, that hurt."
Yeah, and then this is where I got really angry with this episode.
See, this is where I started to really love this episode.
This is where I sat here and I'm like, all right, Sucy, when Sucy doesn't show up again until the very end. And this is what happens, okay? It's supposed to be a Sucy episode. They just blow their load. She's in it for like a minute and a half in the very beginning, and then another minute at the very end of the episode. All the other personality types of Sucy are not Sucy. They're just in Sucy's skin. They're totally different characters. Sucy is not here.
They are aspects of Sucy's crazy personality.
I want to see Sucy being Sucy, not the 50 or so other types of Sucy. Look, I look at it this way.
These are the 50 shades of Sucy, Leo.
Oh my God. Look at it this way. Bcom, if you give me a box and you say, here, this is a box of donuts, I'm going to be like, sweet, I got a box of donuts. I love donuts. Thanks, man. I love donuts. High five. Then I open the box and I see a pile of flour, a pile of sugar, a small pile of yeast, a tub of cooking oil. I'm going to stare at it for a couple of seconds, calmly close the lid, and then chuck it at your head, because that wasn't a box of donuts. It was just the ingredients to make donuts. That's what they did with this episode. Sucy's just one of these ingredients, one of the personality types. She's all of them. And when you break them down, you don't have a complete personality, Sucy. So, I mean, frankly, this was supposed to be an episode about Sucy. Instead, they wasted her episode and barely even wrote her complete character into it. I have to say, the only thing they got right was when they were at the drive-in movies. and they were playing her memories and her
that was
perspective
great. That's my favorite
of how
scene.
she views the world. That's great because that was all the personalities meshed together, how they viewed it.
No.
So
I agree. Like, I really liked that drive-in theater.
And I was just so disappointed because to me, it was just Sucy wasn't in here. You killed me when you wrote Sucy episode, and it's not what I got. Look, I would have loved, they could have done a rerun episode, but they do it from Sucy's perspective and her inner monologue.
Oh, that'd be good.
That would make my day.
Yeah, so we partially got that from the drive-in part where, like, so Akko goes to, like, a drive-in theater where there's, like, a bunch of other, like, figments of Sucy's imagination, like watching like movies all day long, and the movie that's replaying is like how Sucy views everyone else at Luna Nova. And so like it's funny, like when she's watching like Diana's character on screen is like this witch with like really ugly with a long nose and like warts on her face, and like Akko's like, oh, that's how she sees Diana, that's hilarious.
Like
and then,
really long legs, and she's walking like really like prim and proper and like
exactly.
stuck up.
Yeah, she sees her like for like the inner evil side of Diana is what she sees.
And then there's how she sees Akko, which is which is just this total doofus.
Oh, and by the way, this is all in like black and white, and it's kind of like a Looney Tunes-esque like art design.
It's like an old school cartoon, like a really old Hanna-Barbera black and white.
Yeah. And yeah, so Akko's face is just like a more cartoonish version of her, but it honestly looked a lot like her.
She's got like a big buck tooth, and she's just goofy, and it shows her like falling over and stuff. But then it shows like Sucy actually has a little bit of a compassionate side. She's like, it's like they're just doing like from when they did the broom race, and then a couple of the other ventures they've gone through. Mm-hmm. It's just like nice, touching stuff like that.
Yeah, like Akko like starts getting angry a little bit at first because she's like Sucy is like doing like mean stuff to her in these memories, like treating her as a guinea pig for like experiments and stuff. But then even Akko starts like laughing because like it's just so funny. It's great. And so basically like this whole trip through Sucy's mind, she's meeting like weird aspects of Sucy's personality. And there's also this system that is set up inside Sucy's mind to execute any parts of her personality that like don't fit like with her real self. And Akko's like, oh no, I don't want these like parts of Sucy to be killed because they're what makes Sucy herself. So like she saves them from execution, basically, like all these little like Sucy figments, and it comes back to bite her in the end because it turns out if you don't like forget about some like random urges or random like desires and wishes in your mind, like you kind of go crazy.
Things like controlling like your anger or trying to be a happier person, things you try to make better about yourself.
Yes.
Basically, she stopped that process entirely, so everything just got totally out of control.
Yeah. So like in the end, it's like Akko like running away from this giant monster that has formed like out of like all the figments like congealing into like some big like titan or something.
And it's just consuming all the personalities at this point and just wrecking chaos.
Yeah.
And she's got to find the original Sucy in like the tower, which has been her entire goal the whole time.
Yeah, and so eventually like she gets like there's this one Sucy that just like wants to talk her ear off, but like eventually sort of gives her directions to the right room, and the right room is room 666. Yeah. So she finds her there and they wake up. And yeah, I don't know. I love this episode.
She's shaking Sucy.
Yeah.
I just want to get this part across because this is where it's like, okay, how did this end?
Yeah.
But she's shaking her. She's like, you need to wake up and take care of this problem. And she's like promising her to like carry her books every day and do all this kinds of stuff. And then she finally does wake up. And then they suddenly exit out of the dream. And Akko wakes up in her bed.
Yes.
And it's just Latte waking up Sucy over there. They're getting up and Akko's like freaking out. And she's like, did that really happen? Did I just dream that whole thing? And then like on the way out, Sucy goes, hey, remember, you still got to carry my books for a month. And she's like, wait, what?
But at the very, very end of that scene, it like fades to black, but then like a mushroom peeks out from behind her pillow. So like, I think it did happen. That's like my indication that it all actually really did happen.
So it did happen, and it's not over?
I don't know if it's not over, but it's like something that would happen at the end of like an old cartoon too. Like I think
it's like
this is
something
like
that would
homage.
happen if you ate mushrooms.
Yeah, which she's doing too much of that. Sucy needs to chill out. So yeah, I mean, I liked that this was like a crazy trip down the rabbit hole into Sucy's brain, and like
if I hadn't been expecting such a heavy Sucy episode, I probably would have enjoyed it more. But that's just my problem with it. I mean, if the creators came to me and said, which they won't, they were like, "Oh no, that wasn't the Sucy episode. Sucy episode's next week."
Yeah,
I'd totally forgive this episode 100%. But if this was supposed to be the Sucy episode, I am so let down.
We've got a lot of episodes to go. I'm sure there will be something else that is way more Sucy heavy. And I agree with you. Like when I was in the middle of this episode, I was like, oh, but I really want to like see like just normal Sucy. Like I want her to get her own like arc and stuff.
It just seemed like an Akko adventure to me. I mean,
yeah,
she was on screen 100% of the time.
This was Akko being the star again. I would love to see like a Sucy and Lotte episode, like, and Akko just like being out of the picture for once, like, because her personality, it gets annoying after a while.
Yeah, she's stuck in detention, so Lotte and Sucy get to go have their own fun.
All right, so
Mondays,
and we'll start with Gabriel Dropout.
So it's really last episode. I wanted to see some repercussions for like Gabrielle not doing her job.
Yeah,
I almost got that. That's how they started off, like her being broke or something. Yeah. But then the episode totally does a flip flop, and they focus on Vinette because she's an angel, but she was born a demon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So like she's not doing any bad deeds. Her income keeps dropping and dropping. It starts off with the funny scene where she goes back to the coffee shop, and this poor coffee shop owner, Jesus. It's really funny because Vinette's sitting there and he can see she is super depressed, and he's like, he wants to offer some advice, just tell me what's going on, I'll try to help you. And she's like, teach me how to do bad deeds. And he's just like, what? No, you're such a good girl. And that whole little episode is just like her just asking about all these bad things, and he's like, no, you're so good, why is this happening?
Yeah, she like writes notes in her journal about like the bad deeds that like the coffee shop owner like tells her like to do, and like the things she writes she writes like notes next to each thing. So he tells her to be late to school or something, and she says, oh, that's hard. And she tells fake being sick to skip school, and she writes next to that, I can't skip lunch. And she's like, oh, it might not be a bad deed, maybe I can lose some weight. And then she's like, don't drink coffee all day is his last suggestion. And she's like, well, that might be tough for the coffee shop owner. It's not that tough for me. Actually, this episode started off even before that with this like weird montage of comparing Tenma and Veen's like daily routine together.
Oh yeah, I forgot that.
It was kind of cute because like Veen has this like perfect like get up, make breakfast, like go to the park and play with children, like come home, cook a full dinner, like brush your hair, like wash, like take a bath, like go to sleep at like a reasonable hour. And then Tenma's day is just like wake up in like piles of garbage.
Wake up at noon.
Sleep half the day. Yeah, heat up like some instant ramen, some
stay
really
up
crappy
way too
junk
late.
food.
Yeah, just all the bad stuff you can do.
I liked that like stark difference between the two of them. But
especially when one's an angel and one's a demon.
Yeah, so they're both going broke because they're both not fulfilling their job. Like, Gabriel's supposed to be an angel, Veen's supposed to be a demon. They both suck at those jobs. So that's why Veen like once asks like the coffee shop owner, like, how can I like be
bad
like
deeds.
A demon? Yeah. So Veen like decides to like she's gonna change up her dress. So she goes to school, and like the way she like became a demon is like she didn't button her cardigan all the way, and like she loosened the ribbon on her shirt, and she's wearing like those baggy socks or whatever from like Railgun or whatever. It's like that, like that's how she changed up her look, and she tries to get Gabriel to notice this, and like she doesn't notice at all.
Not at all.
And then she's like, I'm bad to the bone. And like Gabriel just looks at her and she's like, what?
Tanya notices though, doesn't she?
Yeah, of course Tanya notices, because Tanya is like the main character of this show. She's like the hero. Yeah, so Tanya notices like that she's dressed differently. And like she's like, oh, you're sticking it to the uniform police, right? And like this makes Veen like really happy because like nobody else was noticing.
Yeah.
And like Veen, like I think like she was like skipping. She couldn't skip class, so she tried to like skip taking notes in class. But like she was so bored not taking notes that she like had to catch herself almost taking notes like several times. Also, I guess their classes last 60 minutes. I think my high school classes were like 45 minutes long, but I guess it differs.
Darn it, I don't remember. I think mine were 40. They may have been 60 at one time.
Yeah.
Or it was like 60 in middle school. I don't remember.
Yeah, that makes sense. So anyway, what happens if after that? Veen gets a cold later on. Wait, am I skipping some stuff? Wait, hold on.
I don't know. I lose track whenever we...
Well, this show also like jumps
week.
over the place too sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh, so there's this part where like Gab gets a cold because... oh wait, no, she doesn't get a cold. Veen gets a cold. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gab like can't afford her microtransactions anymore, and so she just like stays up all night like waiting for heals. There's like a funny scene about that for stupid like MMO game. But like Veen gets a cold, and like I like that she counts like instead of sheep, she counts like Cerberus like monsters like jumping over the fence.
Oh, and they do a little skit.
Yeah.
Yeah, where she's counting it, and it's kind of cute. She also gets visited by Tanya and Raphael at the same time, right?
Yeah, but before that, she's so and they interrupt her like after this happens because like she starts like seeing that like the Cerberus counting isn't working, so she's trying to remember like, oh, what do humans count? And she's like, oh, they count like sheep or something, but instead she starts counting like Gab like jumping over a fence,
but they don't jump over. They're all falling asleep in front of it, and she starts
they're too lazy.
Like, no, you gotta jump over the fence.
Yeah, so it makes her like really agitated and she can't fall asleep. But like apparently she's like whispering about this like in her like fever dream, I think. Because she wakes up and like Rafi and Satanya are there. Or is that who is it? No, it's Gab is there and has
later
like
on
brought her like homework and stuff, and they're like, what are you talking about in your sleep? And like Gab's being like really sweet to her, like she brought her some stuff, and then like Veen's like, oh my god, Gab's like finally being an angel again, and then Gab's like, oh, also I brought my homework, can you do it at the same time that you do yours? So she kicks her out. And then my favorite part of this episode was the ED, because it was also like the lullaby Gabriel's like sheep jumping over the fence thing again.
Yeah.
But it starts like fast forwarding at one point. It gets faster and faster and faster. But then like the singer also like falls asleep to the lullaby by the end of the song.
Yeah, which is it's actually really cute. She has like a very nice soft lullaby voice. So
exactly.
If you actually played it, it might actually put me to sleep.
Yeah, I liked this episode. I thought all the gags in this episode like hit this time. Like the couple episodes previous were kind of like hit and miss for me, so I like this
because
one.
On our previous episode there was a couple problems with the mid-season episodes, episode 6.
Yeah,
I feel like the 3 shows I had a problem with last week, they all picked right back up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like 6 was just like some lull, like they had some material that was and they just kind of threw it in the middle, then they got back to the good stuff.
Yeah. So moving on to episode 8.
Yeah, I got to give this episode props because because lots of anime do the episode where it's where they got go do their measurements, and it's just basically for fan service reasons.
Yeah, they have the physical fitness day or whatever. Yeah.
Physical fitness day, and then all you get is like the measurement.
Yeah, they just take the girls like breast measurements. Every show does this. Yeah, you're right.
And this is exactly what you're thinking, because it starts off with Raphael and her bra is just way too tight, and she's afraid it's going to snap. And then it doesn't go there at all. They don't do measurements once. It's all about the physical testing.
Which it was very surprising, like especially with Rafi's bra. Like I was waiting the whole episode for that bra to snap and to like it just be like a fan service scene of like her boobs. And
finally,
like,
when it did, that's not what
it
was.
Yeah, she just like grabs her breasts and like holds them in place and like crosses the finish line of the race. So basically, like this whole episode is the physical fitness exams, and
so Tanya just kicking ass.
Yeah, so Tanya is like a beast this episode. It's pretty great. Like she just keeps beating everybody in like every event, and like she keeps like talking it up to like Gab and Rafi, and they're just like whatever. Like obviously Gabriel's really funny because like she is so out of shape from playing video games that like,
and she doesn't even want to do it until Vinette basically bribes her to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like doesn't even want to go to take the test at all.
And Raph
she's promised her like a yakiniku if she finishes. Yeah,
and Raph would obviously be kicking Satanya's butt, but because of her bra, she just can't like move fast or do like big arm movements or something because it just puts too much stretch on it. Like I thought one of the really funny ones was they do the ball throw and like Satanya just like launches it to the very end.
Yeah,
and then Raph gets up there,
like drops it like 2 feet in front of her,
and like it just does a little clip and it shows like the hooks on the back of the bra just starting to stretch. She's just and she just like basically drops the ball.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Yeah, you gotta wear a sports bra, Rafi. The thing is, Raphael didn't know this day was gonna be the physical fitness day. Otherwise, she probably would have worn a different bra. But so yeah, they do like at the end they do like a 1,000-meter race, and by this point, like they'd just been like letting Satanya win and not caring. But Gab tells Rafi like, hey, if we don't beat her at least once, she's gonna be like talking our ears off about this for like a whole week.
Yeah, she'll never let them live it down.
So like somebody has to win, and it's clearly not going to be Gabriel because she can't run for crap. So Raphael's like, okay, I'll do it. And so they run the 1,000-meter race, and Satanya's like really fast, but Raphael just like lets it all go and just like speeds past her, but her bra finally like breaks under the pressure.
Right in the last stretch.
Yeah, like snapping these like metal lashes off. And like right on the last stretch. So yeah, this is where I expected like, oh, we're gonna get like a Chariots of Fire, like no slow motion with like her breasts flopping all over the place. But they didn't do that. I was actually really surprised.
No, what you saw was Satanya tripping and just face planting.
Yeah, which was good as well. And so she didn't win. So, and then so that was like the first third of the episode, and then in the second third, Veen and Satanya go to like a job interview exam at school, and Satanya like is just acting like a Yakuza boss or something. Like
then no, was it Gab who gave her a book on? I can't remember if it was Gab or Raph.
I can't remember.
But they gave her a book on like the worst
like
job interviews ever.
Answers.
And so she goes in there and she's like doing this like, and a lot of it is definitely heavily Japanese because I was just like, what are they even talking about? So I'll forgive it for that. I mean, these are just Japanese jokes. As Americans, I just didn't get them, but it was still kind of funny because
it was funny.
Vinette's obviously freaking out and Satanya's just wrecking this whole thing, and the teacher's just playing it super cool the whole time. He's being really neutral is what he's doing.
And Veen is freaking out because she's like, oh no, the teacher's gonna yell at you, and like she's thinking like the whole interview is gonna go down in smoke, and she's thinking the whole time of how to help Satanya out, but like Satanya just keeps like making it worse and digging the hole. But the teacher is like totally neutral because like basically in the end you find out that Veen did okay, but Satanya goes to leave, and like Veen can't believe it.
Come back in here.
Yeah, he's like, I need to speak with you for a second, Satanya, and then like he's super pissed. Like so, but he was being neutral through the whole process so that Veen could do her interview like a normal interview. He was being considerate to her. Mm-hmm. Like if it was just Satanya one-on-one, he would have screamed at her probably. But yeah,
would have crushed her right at the blow.
And
that's just another quarter of the episode.
Yeah,
and it goes on like a. Gab, she has no money because she's not doing good deeds, and she spent all her money on microtransactions, so she's starving. They get to talking about clubs or something like that, and who is it that was it the class president again?
It might have been the class president who talks about like the food club. I don't remember, or the cooking club.
Yeah, but so I liked this scene. You apparently didn't. You thought it was boring, but I thought it was pretty good. So. She's talking to her. She's like, oh, well, I'm in the cooking class. And so Gab's like, oh, I would like to. She thinks she can get some free food out of this. She's like, oh, I would like to go and see how it is. So she gets there, and there's just these two wacky other students we've never met before. I liked them. I thought they were funny.
Yeah, they were kind of.
And they just love to cook. And apparently the class president's a terrible cook. And they're like, no, don't cook. So they cook, and they give Gab a full course meal.
Yeah, and then she orders seconds
of like everything and eats it all. And she's like, this is great. I would love to join this food tasting class. And the president's like, that's not what this is. But the other two girls are like, hey, let's change it to that.
Yeah, and like while she was eating, like they're like, oh my god, she's so cute, she eats so much, and they like put her hair in like twin tails, like, and she doesn't even care. She's just like eating like so intently.
I thought Gab was pretty adorable in Twin Tails.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, I just like I've been getting bored of Gab's character a little bit because like not much has changed with her. Like, I just find Satanya and Rafi like more fun.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like this, it was an okay scene.
Yeah, I liked how it ended though, because it leaves a lot of room for more multiple complex things that happen after this episode. Because Satanya goes to leave, it's raining, she doesn't have her umbrella, but Raph has hers, and she invites Satanya to get under it, and you're expecting Raph to be getting ready to play a joke on her, and it's exactly what Satanya thinks. But you get some inner monologue from Raph. She's like, no, I'm just gonna offer my umbrella, and Satanya's freaking out this whole way, and they do little gags and whatnot, and then this frog starts croaking, and Satanya's looking around, and she's like, oh, a frog, and she's like, hey Raph, look, a frog, and she's like all the way down the block, she's like, I'm good, and Satanya's like, are you afraid of frogs? And then it's like cuts away, and it's like Raph, like, she's like, Satanya's running at her with the frog now, and you just hear Raph like, no, keep it away, it's no good.
Yeah, so Raph finally has a weakness, and that's good because she needed one.
Yeah, I mean, she was OP at this point.
Yeah.
So I like that development a lot.
Yeah, so Gabriel Dropout's still going pretty strong. It's still hitting its gags more often than not, which is good to see. So yeah, that's Monday. We have nothing on Tuesday anymore because we dropped all of those shows.
Which was Aka and Handshakers.
Yeah, and both of those shows, like those specific two shows, I may end up finishing and then talking about at the end of the season, but they just prove themselves like not worth watching for different reasons that we discussed. So, then
yeah, I thought you referred to Handshakers as garbage, so I'm
kind of surprised
it is
you're
garbage,
thinking
but
about
it's finishing like, that.
It's like radioactive, like superhuman garbage. Like, so you kind of like want to watch it sometimes.
And then on Wednesdays we're still watching two shows, but another two got cut, which was Akiba's Trip, which I cut, and then One Room, which you couldn't get into the brother-sister relationship. So
I'll say I watched the last episode of the brother-sister arc, and I'm actually surprised they didn't go, like, let's just say the brother didn't end up in a police car at the end of that episode, and I'm very surprised.
Oh,
so,
Jesus.
Anyway, but yeah, it was pretty trashy still, but anyway. But we are still watching Kobayashi-san Chino Maid Dragon, fortunately.
It's good.
Episode 7 was called Summer Staples, parentheses, the fan service episode, frankly. I love these episode titles for this show. They're pretty hilarious. KyoAni's got definitely like a sense of humor here. Mm-hmm. And this is a beach episode. So the girls go to the beach, and everybody's there. Like Lukoa is there, and like when she gets there, she's wearing like the skimpiest black bathing suit, and she has like the biggest tits in the damn world.
It's just a couple of black strings.
Yeah, like some like beach like officer like comes up to her and like drags her away, and she's like, "You're not like dressed properly for this beach." Luckily, she had another suit. And it's also funny, before this happens, like Shota is like standing next to her, but like getting really overwhelmed. Like Lukoa starts trying to talk to him, and like he like starts looking at her, and like he's like, I don't know where to look. Like he's trying to be like polite, and then he like runs over to the other side of the group where Kobayashi's standing, and he like looks at her chest, which is like completely flat. And
Kobayashi's kind of like, hey.
Yeah, he's like, this
she kind of gets,
she's
like, oh,
she's like, that doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah, it's like, thanks.
So anyway, Kobayashi's not a fan of the beach, so like when they get set up under their umbrella, she doesn't like really want to play. Like the first thing they all do is they start like trying to put like suntan lotion on each other. Like Toru wants to put it on Kobayashi, and Kobayashi's like, don't you dare do anything weird. And
yep.
And then Lukoa is like pouring like suntan oil into Shota's hands, and it's like, come on, put it on me. And he's like, he like runs away, like, why are you trying to seduce me? It was pretty funny. Still,
but there's
kind
also
of
a little
clip
where
really
like
funny.
Kana's like poking at a crab. And then just out of nowhere, she picks it up and eats it. And I was like, oh, Jesus.
It's so good. Kana like has a running joke this episode where she just like eats anything. It's pretty great.
Yeah, she's just eating all this random stuff because she's a dragon, I guess.
And like Kana this whole time is being cute and being like, I want to play. And so they're like, Toru's like, okay, finally, let's do a watermelon splitting contest. And like, Kana, do you want to try? And so like Kana gets blindfolded. They have this like really close up shot of the back of her like big fat legs, which is kind of funny. They're like gigantic on the screen. They like fill the whole screen. And so like she's stumbling towards the watermelon. They're like telling her like left and right, and she like swings like with all of her dragon strength and like splits the watermelon, and Toru's like, you annihilated every like last bit of it.
The watermelon just doesn't explode. It just comes apart like at the molecule. She hits it so hard.
And Kobayashi has like splatters of like red on her face, like it was like blood or something.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Then Kana and Toru have like a swimming race, and like Kobayashi's like, okay, you guys go 1, 2, 3, and then they like jump in the water, and Kobayashi's like, oh no, I didn't tell them to like tone it down. So like their swimming like is like 2 like nuclear submarine torpedoes like racing through the water. And then like they get to like where they stopped, and they like hit like a buoy or something, and they create a huge like tidal wave of like water. It was pretty great.
Yeah, then only this show can go from fan service to like family values just out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's true.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's like Toru is like asking Kobayashi about her family, because Kobayashi like sees like an attendant who's serving some like shaved ice or something, and she's like, oh, I remember when I like used to come to the beach with my family. And so Toru asks her what they were like, and she says, oh, they're basically normal, like I don't see them that often, I see them like once in a while, and we barely talk and stuff. And Toru's like, oh, is that like a normal family? And Kobayashi's like, yeah, I think that's normal. And so Toru's like thinking to herself, like, if she's normal human, like why would she take in a dragon like me? Like, because she still thinks that humans like are all meant to kill dragons and stuff. It's like what she's learned from.
It's what she's been led to believe her whole life.
Yeah. And so she's starting to wonder if like, hey, could dragons actually like coexist with humans in this world on like a regular basis? Like, could they like merge even like this world with the other world maybe? But this continues on, like, so they go, and Kobayashi's like, can I ride you or whatever? And like they go like ride Toru in the ocean. Like I guess they use their like perception blocking to get out there. And then Toru's in her dragon form, and like they're coming up from like under the waves. I think like Lukoa, it's kind of hinted at that there's like a bubble of air around them when they're underwater and they're coming up. So I think Lukoa was making like an air bubble so they could all breathe underwater like while she was racing around. But they come up, and then like Toru just like stays still in the water in her dragon form, and like Kobayashi's like fishing off of her, and like Kana is playing with like a big shrimp or something on the back.
Yeah, something's flopping around.
Yeah. And they're just like talking about like Kana's family, because like Kobayashi kind of got like homesick when she was talking about her family before, and Kana's like, yeah, I kind of thought about like introducing you to my parents.
Kana?
Oh god, Toru. Oh, so many names.
I missed that part.
So Toru's talking about like introducing Kobayashi to her parents, but like she's like, yeah, the problem is though, if I introduced you, like they would kill you. And Kobayashi's like, well, that's probably common sense. Yeah.
So nonchalantly too.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I mean, it's
They're
just like the way that world
dead.
works. So
yeah.
Yeah, and so that's basically how that they go home. They like drift off into the sunset, and like that part of the episode ends. And then the second half of the episode is a Comiket thing, and this is the first of like 2, I think, Comiket episodes or like parts in anime that we're watching this week. Mm-hmm. It's funny how much like Comiket is like portrayed in anime, because it's such like a huge moneymaker for like that industry, like the manga industry, like all the like the doujin industry, like the anime industry, everything around it, the figures and everything. So like it always gets portrayed in anime because of that. So basically at Comiket, like it turns out like there's a bunch of people from Toru's world, like monsters and stuff, that are just walking around like and
because they can blend in.
Yeah, they can blend in with like all the crazy cosplay. So they're just like walking around, and basically Toru through. Well, actually, I want to mention one thing first. Kana couldn't go, and the reason they said that Kana couldn't come is like there's a lot of stuff you can't show children here. So again, like I just wanted to say this, like the people who are like still arguing on like Reddit and stuff that like, oh, Kana is like 100-year-old dragon. And no, they're like treating her like a child. Like they're treating her mind like that of a child. Like she couldn't handle seeing all of the like dojins and stuff that are gonna show up at Comiket and like all that stuff. So yeah, like it just, they're doubling down on like Kana is a child. Like, so that episode where she did those stuff with the other girl, it's a little bit, yeah. Anyway, we're past that.
We get it.
Yeah. So like basically, like Toru is walking around Comiket and she's seeing these like huge crowds of people who are like lining up like really politely, like hundreds of thousands of people or whatever.
Oh my god, I can't believe you wrote this.
So like she's like, something really powerful must be holding all these people together to make them to just follow the rules like this. I don't understand. What could it be?
And this is your own idea.
Yeah, this
about
is me.
that.
I'm like, Toru, it's porn. It's naked lollies is what is holding these people together.
God.
That's the power of Comiket. So anyway, also while this is going on, there's like a scene where Kana is at home and she has a homework assignment that she has to catch bugs. So there's this amazing shot where she's outside and she has like
catch bugs and like describe them.
Yeah, describe them. She's supposed to like paste them to this piece of paper when she catches them, I guess. I think that's what it said on the screen. Or maybe she's supposed to draw them. I don't know.
She was supposed to describe what they looked like, I think. But she's out there and she has like a cicada and she eats it. And she describes how it tasted in the texture.
And that shot looks so good because like, so she's like approaching a tree that's in the foreground of the shot. And then you think she's going to catch it with like her bug net. And then like her face just like leaps out into the foreground of like the shot and like eats the bug. It's just like really surprises you because it's like a little 3D like moment. And yeah, like she's like writing about like what the bugs taste like. And they're like, this one was crunchy and tender. And like, so her teacher is going to be like horrified when she sees that report. But yeah, that's basically like that half of the episode. Not much comes of like the whole Comiket bit. There's like some stuff with like Fafnir trying to sell like cursed, like he's trying to sell like actual curses that would like if they were used they would actually like do like tremendous harm to people. But like nobody buys them, and so he like walks away like really pissed.
He's like depressed / pissed. I don't know what his problem is.
He's Fafnir.
Yep.
So that's that episode. Episode 8 is New Dragon Elma.
I've been waiting for this because she's been in the OP and the ED since episode 1, and we went all the to a mid-season. I'm sitting here, I'm like, is she ever going to show up? Who is this? And I really like this character.
Yeah. So, but before we get to her, we have like a first third of the episode where Kobayashi and Toru are battling to see who can cook the best bento lunch for Kana. Because she's going on a field trip, and like Toru's like, oh, I'll cook. I'm better cook than Kobayashi. And Kobayashi's like, not so fast. So they do like an Iron Chef thing where it's like Lukoa, Fafnir, and Kana are the judges. And so Kobayashi, like, first round is like she puts 2 cherry tomatoes like on a plate, and that's it. And Toru cooks this like really fancy salad, but it turns out like she made like way too much food for a bento box.
Yeah, it would never fit in a bento. It would just be overflowing. So the 2 cherry tomatoes are actually they win by far.
Yeah, even though it's like nothing.
Yeah, and the second round is like Kobayashi. She makes bacon and eggs, and at some point she reminisces. She's like, I always ask my parents for them to make bacon and eggs for me. But then Toru does a hamburger, but Kana likes hamburger more, and you say that's because she's a lolly. And
every lolly in anime and every emoto in anime has to say hamburger. Like, they have to say it because it's the cute thing for lollies to say. So Kana does too.
Yeah,
I thought that was kind of funny though.
Then in the third round, Toru loses by default because she grabbed something from her world. That's against the rules.
It's like she like brings back something that looks like a little pink, almost like cotton candy-ish kind of
on
thing.
A stick type
like
thing.
On a stick, and she's like, "Oh, here," and Kobayashi like takes a bite of it, and she's like, "Oh my god, it's so good!" And then like the thing like sits still for a second, but then it opens and it has like teeth and like a mouth, and it's starting to like chomp at Kobayashi.
Yeah, but then it like shows it like kissing her on the cheek. Or
yeah,
something.
It's actually like a sweetheart, I guess.
It's the scene after that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Toru loses by default.
Yeah, and then another interesting thing, we get to learn a little bit more about the dragon world, because there's actually kind of 3 societies of dragons. There's harmony, chaos, and then like the spectating faction, which is just means you're neutral.
Yeah, what is that, like Twitch subscribers or something? The spectators. The comment section faction. The most toxic dragon
Toru
faction.
we know is from, I mean, if you didn't kind of figure out, she's from the Chaos one, because, you know, she's always wanting to like destroy all the humans and stuff. It's kind of a running joke and whatnot. But then this is also where Elma finally shows up, and she's from the Harmony, so that's like why she's always button heads with Toru.
Mm-hmm. They're rivals.
Yeah.
So like,
that.
Elma shows up at the apartment, and she's like challenging like Toru to like a fight, and it's like to bring her back to the world and stuff. And so Toru's like kind of like being nonchalant. She's like, "Fine, I'll fight you." And she like opens up like a circular portal to the field where Kana and Toru had played in a like previous episode, like episode 2 or something like that, maybe 3. And so Elma walks through it, and she's like, "Come on, I'm ready." And then like Toru just closes the portal behind her, like just trapping her on like another continent. So it takes her like an entire day to find her way back to Japan, and she like comes back. But she's like starving, like she hasn't eaten anything, and she's been traveling for like 1,000 miles or whatever. And so there's like some cream bread like sitting around. And Kobayashi offers her a piece of it to like help her calm down, and because she's like obviously hungry, and she
her stomach keeps growling.
Yeah, she like loves it, like completely like re-energizes her, and so she's ready to fight Toru again. And then Toru's like, "Will you go away if I just give you this entire bag of cream bread?" And she's like,
it's just her dancing down the hallway with the bag.
Yeah, she just leaves immediately. She runs away. And then there was like this intermittent scene where Shota is having a dream where
they do it like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, it recurs. But the first one is like he's being pressed to the ground by like a huge ball, and he's trying to lift it. This is the dream he's having, and it shows like in real life he's actually sleeping in bed with Lukoa, and her breasts are like almost suffocating him. Basically,
he's trying to like bounce him away.
It's so dumb. So that's the first scene. But anyway, so after that, Kobayashi goes to work, and Elma turns up there, and apparently it's like by coincidence. Like Elma is a harmony dragon, so she's trying to study human society and see how well dragons can blend in with humans and like coexist. So Kobayashi's like, "Are you sure you want to work here though? Like this computer job is like pretty hard." And Elma's like, "Oh, I'm sure dragons can do anything humans can do." So she gets into to the computer, and she's like, "What is this box?" So she notices like literally nothing, and so Kobayashi comes like turns it on for her and like shows her like the ropes and stuff. And
yep.
She actually learns really fast, and is like almost able to work by the end of the day, which is pretty cool. But then she's like, "So when do I get paid?" And Kobayashi's like, "Well, it's the first of the month. We get paid at the end of the month, so you don't get paid for like 30 days. She's like, "Oh crap," because she has nowhere to stay. She's like, "What am I gonna do for food and rent?" And Kobayashi like buys her like a little like croquette or something, but that's basically it. And she's on her own. But when Kobayashi goes back home, Toru answers the door, and like she starts like sniffing her, and she's like, "You smell like dragon. Like, are you cheating on me?" And so Toru is getting like fed up of not getting enough attention like from Kobayashi. Like, so Kobayashi answers the door, and Elma's there, and Kobayashi's like being like really nice to Elma and like just like catering to her and stuff. And Toru like comes and like blasts like a fire blast at like Elma that like sends her into the distance, and then like she just like
almost takes out Kobayashi at the same time. She has to duck.
Yeah, Kobayashi has to duck because like Toru like was so pissed off that like she like blasted like her off the ledge, and like blasted part of like the balcony like in front of their apartment off and everything. And so like she explained that like, "Hey, you know, I just want to like have like a little bit of attention from you. Like it's clear that like I'm in love with you and all this stuff. And Kobayashi has to apologize because she's like, you know what, I've never really been wanted before. And so it's like weird for me, and she doesn't really know how to handle relationships even with humans.
She doesn't know how to react herself. So
so what she does, like Toru was like, oh, I just like want you to pet my head sometimes, and so like she pets Toru's head, and she can't even like look at her. She's like, this is as clear as I can make it. Please take the hints. Take the hints. So Toru's happy. It was cute.
Yeah,
but
that's
my favorite little intermittent Shota scene though is like at the end of the episode where he's like he thinks he's like boxing or something, and like he's hitting like big balloons, and like he wakes up and like Lukoa is awake and like and he's like batting her. He's like horrified that he's like punching her boob, and she's like, wow, you're really forward, Shota. And he's like terrified. He's just living like a nightmare right now.
He's just a poor boy. Just, I mean, they're portraying it like he's going into puberty, but he looks a little too young. But he's just horrified. He's like, oh my God, women, ah. So yeah, that's how they portray it, and it's really funny. Yep. But, all right, moving on to KonoSuba. Episode 6 was a little bit dud. Episode 7 is freaking amazing. Oh my God. Immediate pickup from last week. And I mean, like the first 40 seconds was just very humorous. It's Cosmo and Aqua, and they're just acting super strange. They're like, they're being really polite with each other. And it's so funny because Megumi walks into the room and she's like freaking out because Aqua's like serving Kazuma tea, and Kazuma's like, this isn't tea, this is just water. And Aqua's like, oh, silly me, I must have blessed it, so it turned it to water.
And they're just like both laughing it off, like, ha ha ha.
Yeah, and Megumi's like, please stop acting like this, what is wrong?
You're freaking me out.
Yeah. So what happened was Darkness shows up and she explains what happened. Turns out the other day when Megumi was gone, they got a visit from Master General Dude, and Kazuma's having all these other ideas from the other world, like he has like Katsu's food.
Oh, Kotatsu?
Yeah. I have one. I'm like staring at it. And I'm like, what is that thing called? It's a long day at work, man. Give me a break. But anyways, yeah, like we know he made a Kotatsu and some other things, but then he's like offering like this insane amount of money, like 300 million yen for Kazuma's idea, or they could do like a profit sharing thing where he'd get like 1 million yen a month. So that's why Aqua and him, they're just so high on the idea of having a ridiculous amount of money. They just feel like they have no problems.
And by the way, you take the 300 million yen. Like it would take so many years for 1 million yen a month to even equal up to 300 million yen. And it's just, you take the 300 million, but that's besides the point.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a whole nother topic. It's like when you win the lottery, do you take the lump sum or do you take the installments?
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. So anyways, they all decide to go to the hot springs, and there's actually a certain town that is known for their hot springs. Because, you know, every anime has to have a hot spring episode.
Yeah, of course.
So they go to town. They're going to get on like this wagon train to go over there. There's this hilarious little bit where there's not enough room inside, so one of them has to sit on the outside on like the hard part or something like that. So they do rock, paper, scissors for it.
Yeah.
Aqua loses.
Yeah, apparently Kazuma's like the king of rock, paper, scissors.
Like he's never lost his entire life. Never. So Aqua like challenges him like 5 times in a row, and she's just freaking out. She cannot beat him. So she ends up sitting on the outside. It does this kind of neat little transition scene of them like leaving the city, and it's all happy-go-lucky, and it's clear something inevitably is going to go wrong any second because it's just way too... Everything's way too right now.
It's way too calm for KonoSuba.
Yeah, you're like, oh, it's like in video games when suddenly you come across a bunch of ammo and health packs. You're like, crap. There's a boss coming up. This is that version for this show. It's like, oh, everything's too good and lucky right now. This is gonna go bad. And it's just right on cue. Cosmo spots a dust cloud heading their way. And he doesn't know what it is, but with a little talking with the driver, they find out it's what they're like kite hawks or something like that.
Running hawk kites. They're like basically ostriches with like eagle heads or something.
Yeah. And basically, of course, they're in heat. When they're in heat, what they do is they run to like prove their dominance. They run towards the hardest object they can possibly find, but then they like divert at the very last second. But obviously, it's their fault this is happening because Darkness's armor is made of adamantium. That's what they use in the show, right?
I think so. It's something like that.
It's anyway. An A word, metal, whatever. So, they know it's their fault. Cosmo's freaking out because he's like, oh no, this is my fault. This is a bad idea. So they jump out in their usual fashion and try to save the situation. It's Cosmo just constantly apologizing to everybody, and they're like, oh, you're doing such a good job and whatnot. And then it's like the end of the episode. And this is an extremely funny episode.
Yeah.
And then episode 8 just picks up
right there. Yeah.
Keeps going with it.
It's so good.
You take it, Bcom.
Yeah, so the ostriches are like running like towards the wagon still, and Darkness is like out in the middle of like the field, like they're gonna ram me. It's gonna be so bad, Cosmo. She like lets out this like yell and yells like oh wait, no, this is before that. So like no, she's like, males in heat are gonna be leaping over me, and it's like, oh my god, Jesus.
Not running into her. She thought they were gonna run into her. But then they start leaping over her. And she's like, what is this? Some kind of foreplay? She has to make it. But there's also a scene, I don't remember if it's at the very end of the last one or this one, but like they have other adventurers with them that were specifically hired to guard the carts.
Yeah.
And this one guy like does this spell where like the ropes are going to go out and like wrap up the bird guys or whatever.
Yeah, Darkness
jumps in the way, so now she's like in bondage.
Yeah, so she's having a grand old time. So basically the kites like jump over her, and like they just like run and like chase everybody around them off, sort of. And so like Cosmo's like, we need to get in the cart, like, so we need to get back in the cart and get out of here. And Darkness is like, no, like leave me behind. And then he's like, no, you have to come with us. And then she's like, well, I'm too heavy for you to carry, like you're just gonna have to tie me to the cart and drag me behind the cart. And so Darkness gets her wish, and they start driving the cart, and she lets out this like orgasmic like yell, and then she like yells like, Kazuma, and Kazuma like responds like from far away off screen, barely audible. I loved this. And he says like, don't yell my name in that context.
And like even Megumin and like Aqua and the undead lady are like looking at him like, hey, this is a little far for you. And he's like, this was her idea, not mine.
So as she's getting dragged, like Aqua is like repeatedly like using heal on her as well to keep her from like dying. And she's like, hang on, Darkness, heal. Yeah, it's like the ultimate like sadomasochistic challenge for Darkness. Like it's her dream. So they come along this cave, and like the wagon stops, and Cosmo's like he jumps off the wagon. He knows that like the birds, the running kite hawks are all attracted to the hardest thing. So he like rips apart like the rope, cuts the rope, like, and then he just somehow now, even though he couldn't lift her up like 5 minutes ago, he lifts Darkness up and throws her like
anime physics
100 feet in the air and like to the front of the cave, and then she drops down like a sack of potatoes and lands right on her head, like right on her neck.
Oh, and it makes the noise just like
yeah, exactly.
Like, oh.
But she doesn't die, but like so all of the kite hawks like run and like jump over her.
Darkness, I mean, she can take a full blast from Megumin.
I guess so. It's just funny because like Cosmo died like this same way just like a couple episodes ago, so I expected her to die too, but she didn't. But anyway, Megumin blasts the cave, and like
they jump over Darkness because we know they're going to avoid her, and so they all get in the cave, and then
so it saves the day. And like so Cosmo's like feeling so guilty now because he realizes how much trouble that his party has caused, but all the other adventurers and like the people on the wagons are like, you guys are the heroes, like please allow us to pay you like some like this sum.
Yeah, they're like, you saved the day. That's how they saw it.
Yeah. Like Cosmo knows that it's like, no, it was Darkness, it's all her fault. And so like
he's like, this is how it always is. Then the episode's not done.
Oh yeah, so there's this part like in between at night. They're like sitting around a campfire, and like Kazuma's like reshaping like Darkness's like dented breastplate like back into form. And it's funny because like Megumin is sitting on one side of it and Darkness is sitting on the other side, and they're like looking at him like reshaping her like breast, and they're just like, oh, and he's like, you guys are making this really awkward. So like his like smithing ability is finally coming into usefulness.
Yeah, so you remember how a couple episodes ago we learned that Aqua is catnip to the undead?
Yes. So that night, undead zombies like stumble across the camp. And so again, like Aqua wakes up just like, what's making all this noise? And she like sees the zombies and she like casts sacred undead and like kills.
She's like,
all
why
of them.
why am I waking up the zombies all around me? She's freaking out.
Yeah. Like, why is it always this? And like so she gets all the credit again for like saving the day. And like
It's
Cosmo,
such a funny scene because Aqua goes on like this power trip
yes,
of like blessing all these zombies around her.
and Cosmo, she goes up to Cosmo and she's like, I've been doing like really well lately. I'm on a roll. And Cosmo's like, oh my god.
You're the reason that even happened.
So eventually they finally get to the hot springs city, which is called Archon Retia.
Well, the undead lady general got caught up in that. So like they're carrying her. Kazuma's carrying her around.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. She got hit by the sacred undead spell. Yeah. So these really like nice people keep coming up to Kazuma, and like they're from the Axis Church, which apparently is the church that like worships Aqua.
Yeah.
As one of their goddesses.
This was something from season 1.
Yeah.
So like they get there and Kazuma's like, oh, it's a city of hot springs. It's a city of water. It's where the Axis Church is, and they worship Aqua. He's like, oh, and they've dealt with them before, and they're these absolute crazeball fanatics.
They're totally like Scientology believers or something, because they keep coming up to Kazuma and he's like walking around town with Darkness, and like people keep coming up to them like with different schemes to get them to sign this paperwork to sign up for the church.
Yep.
And it just gets worse and worse. Like there's like a woman, and she's like, oh no, this man's like gonna molest me, like if you don't, but you could save me if you just sign this paperwork to join the Axis Church.
And it's just so plain as day is what's going on. They don't even try to hide it.
Yeah, and
which is hilarious because this is like something you would see Aqua do, so it's totally befitting of her followers to be these crazy people like she is.
But it's also funny because so Darkness is like a believer in the Eris faith, I guess, and so she has like a pendant that she'll like show people. She's like, no, like I'm not gonna believe in the Axis Church. And it's funny, the way they react is like they go from being like all nice and like jolly to like spitting in the dirt in front of her and then walking away and like looking back and spitting again.
They all do that. It's great.
Yeah, they go to like a restaurant and like,
of course Darkness is getting off on this. Yeah,
Darkness is loving being treated like dirt, and they go to a restaurant and like they give like Kazuma like what he ordered, and they give Darkness like a dog bone in a little doggy dish.
The waitress is so nice, and she's like, oh, this is on the house, but we got you a dog bone, and it's like in a dog dish. She just throws it on the ground and walks away.
And then just like the cherry on top of this episode is that Kazuma runs into like this little girl who's like really cute, and this is like exactly Kazuma's type. He's like weak to this like Emoto like stereotype. And she comes up and it's like she trips and falls on the ground, and she's like, oh no. He's like goes to help her up, and she's like, oh, could you just, I guess, how does she try to trick him? She's like, can you just like write, oh, how do you spell your name? What's your name? And she's like, oh, I'm Sato Kazuma. And
she's like, I don't know how to spell that. Can you write it on this piece of paper?
Can you just write it on this piece of paper? And he's like, oh yeah, sure, I can, little girl. And then he starts to write, and then he's like, you son of a bitch.
he just shreds the paperwork, and it just ends on a scene of like him freaking out, like a still frame of like him freaking out, and like the little girl like, no.
It's so good. Man, only two episodes to go of KonoSuba. I guess next podcast we're gonna be like giving a final review of this season for that. That's crazy. So anyway, moving on to Thursdays. Masamune-kun's Revenge. So let's see, episode 8. Aki and Masamune meet up because he left some luggage behind at her island villa from the trip that they were on the previous episode. And they meet at a diner, and like Makabe is like thinking about how his childhood picture is missing from his room, and how like Fujinuma like took it. Like this is all like from the last episode and how it ended, and like how he's finding out that like she might know like his secret. So Aki gets pissed that he's like not listening to her and like leaves, and there's this really funny moment where a little girl is sitting in the booth like right behind Makabe, and she like turns around in the booth and like takes her little hands and like comes over, and she's like, "Mommy, did that guy just get dumped?" It's just really cute. And then so anyway, Masamune he goes to Neko's apartment. She invites him over because he calls her, and he wants to confront her about the photo. And so he's downstairs, and he's like, I need to go to the bathroom. He sneaks into her room to see if like she has the photo anywhere, and he finds like a bunch more of like these vitamins and like some sadomasochist manga, which kind of surprises him. But before long, like she catches him in there, like she comes up really close behind him. But she doesn't really mind. Like she even says like one of the manga he's reading is like this like steroid thing is something she saw in his room, and like so that confirms his suspicions that like she snuck into his room though. So she takes the photo out from where she was hiding it, which was in her cleavage, of course, because she's like a sneaky one. And she tells Masamune that like, or Makabe, that she thinks he was really cute, like, and that there's nothing wrong with being fat. And like he's kind of taken aback because no one has ever said that to him. Like in his life, he always got like endlessly teased and bullied for the way he looked. And if it really was okay to be fat, then like his whole life, like right now, where he all he cares about is looks and like how people perceive him, is like a lie. So she like holds his hand, and like while he's still reeling and about to cry, like she grabs his cheek and kisses him like full on the lips. It's like a really sweet moment, honestly. The whole scene was really well done. And there's a long pause after the kiss to give it like appropriate weight. Like he's surprised, but he doesn't flip out like, you know, male characters do in a lot of anime when something like this happens. Like so she pushes him gently back like onto the bed and like tells him like appearance is only one aspect of like a person's like personality, and health comes first. Like she's obviously a crazy health nut for reasons that'll become apparent. And he thinks to himself that if appearance is only one aspect, then all of his ambitions for revenge like no longer really matter. And she's about to go kiss him again, but then he starts to think about his past and about Aki, and he tells her about how he was bullied and hated as a kid, and how she can't understand that, and how he's sure she doesn't actually like him, and he won't continue with someone who's not serious. So he throws this whole opportunity out the window because he still cares more about his stupid revenge over Aki than he does about like this really honest moment, like this beautiful thing that is happening between him and Fujinuma. So he rejects her, and
it's just dedication, man. I mean, come on.
Yeah, well, yeah, when she asks if he's gonna choose Aki over her, he's like, yeah, that's my revenge. And she later cries herself, and she's like, is this the heartbreak that people have told me about? Like, so she's like her first heartbreak. So basically, the next day, like Makabe and the rest of the girls are going to the pool, and Fujinuma's supposed to come, but she doesn't show up. And then afterwards, at the way back, Shido, who is her like attendant, tells them that like Fujinuma's missing and she hasn't taken her medication, and she reveals that the medication like controls seizures that she's been having. And so Masamune thought all this time that like the medication was a front. I even thought that it was just like diet supplements. So I was totally fooled by this. Like I thought she cared about her appearance. I thought she was like a conniving person, but it turns out that she was sick. She was really sick. And the way she was acting was just a way to like deflect from the fact that she's really sick. And she wasn't like really trying to be sneaky at all.
So that one scene from an earlier episode where like they were having dinner together all at his house, and they like his little sister or somebody said, or whoever said like, oh, you guys are so much alike, because they were taking their pills and
Yeah.
being careful about what they ate was just totally misleading.
Yeah, it was very misleading for me, definitely. So like Shido forces Makabe to tell her what happened. What did he do yesterday? Because he came over to the house, and so in front of everyone, he decides like, oh, I guess I can make things clear right now. She's like, I declined, I rejected her because I told her I was going to choose Aki instead. This was actually my favorite episode of the show so far because of that scene in the bedroom between Fujinuma and Makabe. I thought it was like finally the characters are finally being honest with each other for once. Of course, Makabe comes to like a crappy conclusion, but still, it was better. It sort of continues on into episode 9, where everyone is searching for the Nopan Ojosama, which is what Yoshino calls her, like, because she doesn't wear panties. So Fujinuma, who's still missing. And so Makabe is like kind of surprised that Aki is like helping search. He thought that she would be mad at him or something. But she basically says she feels bad for her because she was rejected. And she says having somebody you like look the other way is a very sad thing. So we're starting to get more into Aki's like backstory with romance here. And Makabe finally confronts Aki and asks her if she remembers the nickname Pig's Foot. Like he's about ready to tell her what's going on. But before she can respond, or remember really, Makabe gets hit in the back of the head by like a paper airplane. They're at school. They're looking for Fujinuma. And apparently Fujinuma is like on top of the roof because she's been reading this manga that Makabe liked called Rose-Eyed Steroid. And there's this manga scene at the end where the girl is rejected and she makes paper airplanes out of like the love letters that she had written to her boyfriend. And throws them off the roof because they no longer have like a destination to go to. Like there's nobody who wants these love letters anymore. So Makabe like runs up to the roof and he sees her and they have a short conversation where she's like, yeah, I was trying to reenact the manga. And, but then she's like, yeah, but I'm probably not in the same condition as the girl in the manga. And she collapses into Makabe's arms. And so they call the hospital, like they call like Shido and they get her to the hospital. And when she's in stable condition, she asks to talk with Aki first. And Aki comes out. We don't know what they said to each other. And then it's Makabe's turn. And when he goes in, Fujinuma says like, hey, let's talk about the past. And basically we find out that Fujinuma has a very serious illness and her grandfather like wants her to go overseas to get surgery for it. So she picked out like one condition for her grandfather. She's like, I want to experience falling in love before I get this surgery that's like not even 100% sure to like be successful. And then it turns out that Fujinuma picked Makabe like randomly out of a pile of photos of potential suitors that her like family had prepared for her. So like she doesn't even like specifically love him for any like particular reason. Like she picked him randomly. But she still has like grown to like him and she's liked this like game of falling in love with him. But she also says that like in the end, like they had been both lying to each other and to themselves in different ways. Like she was lying to herself about like the love being completely real, and he's obviously been lying to himself about like Aki and like the way he really feels. And so, but then it's also revealed that Fujinuma and Makabe did know each other as really young kids, and their parents had been playing like matchmaker. Like Makabe's mom had been the one to send like a picture to like Fujinuma's family as like for like a suitor. Like these rich families are always trying to connive and get people set up with each other's kids. And it turns out Aki actually was really in love with Pig's Foot, young Makabe, as a little girl. We find this out at the end of the episode because she's like thinking about everything that happened. And she's thinking like, so when she was in the hospital room, Fujinuma basically had a short conversation with her that was like, why aren't you accepting Makabe's love? Like, you should just go for it. And she's like, no, that stupid idiot. Like, why would I accept him? But then she starts thinking about like what real love means to her. And real love was when she fell in love with this little fat kid named Masamune back when they were kids. And I don't know why she doesn't put 2 and 2 together at this point, but she doesn't still.
Because anime.
And then while she's figuring that out and maybe deciding if she wants to like give Makabe a chance, a character gets introduced who is a little fat kid who looks like what young Pigsfoot would grow up to look like if he had just stayed fat. And he shows up and he like greets Aki at her mansion and pretends that he's like the long lost Pigsfoot finally back. And
because she has a fat kid fetish.
Yeah, she loves chubby little fat kids, apparently. And Makabe at the end of this episode is he somehow hasn't taken the good message out of this. Like he decides to like redouble his efforts to like get his revenge, and like he even says the line like, I'm gonna go out and lose more weight and find new ways to be hot. And I'm like, oh my god, you moron, how have you not learned? But so yeah, this fat character gets introduced, and from everything I've heard of people talking about the show and what the manga has in store,
it goes way downhill.
Everybody hates this character, so I'm really looking forward to the next couple episodes to see what happens.
Yeah, and I read the manga up to this point and just a little bit further, and then I just stopped it because I totally lost complete interest in this show.
Yeah. So I think the show is getting slightly better, but it's sad that because people say it's going to go way downhill after this point, but I really liked where it built up to. I really like how Fujinuma's character has been handled. But anyway, let's move on to Scum's Wish, Kuzu no Honkai. So,
yay!
Okay, episode 7. God, so much happens in every episode of this show. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I unfortunately, dear listeners, did not get to finish this because my internet at work decided to crap out on me.
Yeah, it's too bad.
And I got 12 minutes into episode 7, and it would play for 10 seconds and buffer for 15 and play for 10 seconds and buffer for 15, and I gave up after 12 minutes of this.
Yeah. So,
but I will be caught up next time.
Yeah. So
the floor is all yours, Bcom.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Let's see if I can remember everything that happened in these episodes. So it turns out that Mocha had only ever been on one date before, and the entire time she was thinking about Mugi anyway, which is just another case of pretending someone else can be a replacement for the one you really love. So like this whole episode is going to be like a kind of about Mocha and Mugi's date. Like she finally got him to go out with her. And the day of the date, she gets all dolled up and like she's saying to herself like it's partly for him, but it's mostly for me, which is something a lot of girls say, I think, when they get really well dressed up and like put a bunch of makeup on and like look amazing. At the same time that Mugi and Mocha are going to go on their date, Hanabi is also on another date with that like douchebag guy who Akane had dated before. And he basically, all he does is just like nag her to go to a hotel like the entire time.
Yeah, I got to see this stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's such a douchebag move.
Yeah, she keeps trying to like change the subject, and he's like, "No, let's just go to a hotel. Like, are we going to a hotel yet?" and then
straight up leaves her when he gets a call from another chick, and he flat out tells her too.
Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna go meet a chick who'll let me do her." And he just like straight up tells her, and she's like, "Okay."
She's like, "No, don't go. Stay with me." He's like, "Oh, are we gonna go to the hotel?" She's like, "No." He's like, "Well, peace."
Yeah. And at the end of the day, she realizes that like she really just wants someone to respect her for who she is. So anyway, back to Mocha's date. So it's like kind of the complete opposite. She's a total romantic, and she chooses like a really sappy romantic movie for them to go to. And like she holds Mugi's hand.
It was a mermaid movie in English.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. It's kind of like a dream-like date, and like Mocha like wants to just make memories that she won't ever forget. Like she realizes that even if like Mugi isn't feeling what she's feeling, like she's gonna like pretend that everything is going like perfectly. So she's like going through the whole date like sort of not even making eye contact with him. She almost gets through the entire night just like preserving these memories, but he like breaks down the barrier. She breaks down the barrier, and she like tells Mugi like she loves him before the end of the night, and he kisses her. Probably more out of a sense of like wanting to like make her happy than actually like returning her affection.
Yeah, I think this is where I had to give up.
Yeah, that's where it conked out on you.
Yeah.
So we go away from Mocha and Mugi for a little bit, and like Hanabi is like in a really like low place. Like she realizes like she hates men, she can't see Echan, and she has no friends anymore, and she's just kind of at a loss. And
she can't see Echan?
Yeah, because Echan is like mad at her because she like won't be in like a lesbian relationship.
Okay.
So she's like realizing like she can't talk to anybody right now except for Mugi. But back to that situation, Mocha has like come back and she's like in Mugi's bed. And she tells him like the date wasn't all she hoped, but she knew why. And she has a flashback to her childhood, and it turns out that she even realizes this. Like all her life, she's been able to manipulate people to get what she wants. Like she like would do this to Mugi when they were growing up. Like he would like yell at her, and then she would just start crying, and he would like just like calm her down and like always apologize, and like she would always get what she wants like from everybody throughout her entire life. It's like her conscience like tries to argue with like this bad side of her and stop her from being exactly like all of Mugi's like other like crappy girlfriends that he's had. But eventually like the bad side of her like wins out and like provokes Mugi into trying to like have sex with her. So this is exactly what I did not want to see happen, because like Mocha is like the young girl character of this show, and she's kind of innocent, but also we're finding out she's not innocent at the same time. So it's like a maelstrom of crap. But so like this almost went a little too far for me. Like since she's like basically a textbook lolly in like the art design of this show, and Mugi is sort of thinking the same thing. Like he's testing her. She's like, instead of just going right for it, he like starts to test her by like saying like, you need to show me like your breasts, like you need to take your shirt off, and slowly like and gently starting to touch her and see if she like resists and wants to stop. Yeah. And like he's getting close, but then he just stops himself because like he says that like, you're too important to me, and she responds by saying like,
too important to him to like disgrace.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And like Mocha like responds to him by saying like she knows that she's like his special sacred ornament, quote unquote, who can't be touched, but she wanted to be touched just this one time so she could finally like live in his world for once. Otherwise, like, what's the point of being special? Like if you can't ever touch the person like who you want to be with. And then there's like this sequence that plays out like a romance film, like from like they were watching in the movie theater before, where she decides like the dream has been shattered, and she doesn't want this dream anymore. Like she decides like she needs to like wake up from this fantasy that she's been living for her entire life and just move on. So that's how that encounter ends, which is good. And Hanabi and Mugi meet up, and they decide at the end of this episode that they're going to tell like their respective like crushes how they truly feel, and they're going to both like try and get rejected together by the end of summer break.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So like episode 8 is where shit goes down. So Mugi tells Hanabi like, I'm going to go confess my feelings to Akane. And Hanabi's like, okay, fine. I'm going to do it to Narumi at like the same time or like a little bit later. So the episode it starts off a little weird. It introduces this like tall guy with like dark emo black hair named Atsuya, who knows Etchan. They were like childhood friends, and like he like meets up with her, and it's clear he's had a crush on her for a long time. But she rejected him for obvious reasons because she likes girls. But it's also interesting, like they're having like a lunch or something at like a diner, and it's funny, she's wearing a hat that like literally says Scums Wish on it, which is kind of funny to me. Like it was like a trucker hat, like that just literally had Scums Wish in like, I don't know, some weird font printed across the front in English.
Oh yeah, I mean Japan.
So Atsuya is talking about about like why she doesn't want to be with him, and like why, if he has a chance, and she's like, is it because you like girls and you only like girls? Is it because you like that specific person? And so she's like, I'm kind of uncomfortable with this conversation. He's like, well, he pushes her, and he's like, so like you hate guys, but you don't hate me, so then is it really about gender? And she's like, I don't want to put a gender label on you. And then he's like, okay, fine, then I still have a chance or something. It's like a weird conversation. He's like trying to push her to like accept that like he could potentially be like going out with her. But anyway, that's besides the point. I don't really care about that development as much as what else happens in this episode, where Mugi and Hanabi are together again. And so Mugi lets loose that he can't imagine Hanabi as Akane anymore. This is before they go off to like confess. And Hanabi doesn't even know how to respond to this. I feel like if Hanabi had like returned his like emotions at this point and said like, yeah, I feel like you're really important to me, like they might not have gone off and confessed to somebody, or they might have just stopped and said like, hey, let's just call this quits and let's just go out with each other. But she doesn't know what to say. But she's thinking in her head like, I've stopped comparing Mugi to Narumi as well. But I guess they're just gonna both go through with this thing anyway. So Mugi's first. He goes and meets Akane, and they go to a cafe, and he confesses to her, kind of. He's like, I love you. Actually, I used to love you. And he starts calling her out on all of her bullshit. He's like, you're always lying to yourself, and you're lying to everybody around you, and you date these terrible people. And you do it because like you're addicted to being loved, but you've never actually fallen in love. But anyway, they end up at a hotel, like in the middle of this scene. It kind of just transitions to a hotel, and like he's like, why am I even here? Why am I here? And he's like yelling at her, like not yelling at her, but he's like chastising her for being who she is. And she's like, no, he's like, I want to change you. Like, I want to change you, and I want to be your first like real lover. Like, which is what I predicted. Like, I think it's been coming down the pike. Like, that's what he's wanted to do. Like, he wants to bring her back from like this abyss of like endless crappy relationships that she's been having with this addiction that she has.
Okay, quick second. Which two characters are you talking about?
Mugi and Akane.
Yeah, because he wants to be her knight in shining armor.
Exactly.
Which I said earlier on. Yeah, we know. Yeah. We knew he wanted to do that.
So that's how that's going, but they like start making love and stuff, I think. And then the scene shifts back, and it's Hanabi's turn now. It's like later that night, and she's invited Narumi to a park. And she tells him that she used to love him and that she still does. Like, it hasn't changed. And then like he basically is just like, thank you. Like, that's basically all he said. He just says like, thank you. And like she's thinking inside like about how like she's so happy that like he didn't return her feelings, but he accepted her feelings very quickly, and he was like really kind about it. And like he like opens his arms, and like she starts crying, and she's like a blood-brained mess, and she like puts her head into his like chest and just like cries and cries. Like, she hasn't cried like this for a really long time. And like I was thinking during this whole scene, it's like, yeah, she really sees him as like the father figure that she never had. And like she's just so happy to be like accepted by him. And like so like she has this weird mix of emotions where she loves him, but she also like loves him like a father, I think. And so he doesn't do anything. He just says thank you, and there's no further development beyond that. And she's just like, my unrequited love has finally come to an end. It's like she's gotten like a resolution. Like, when she said that she loved him, like she saw like basically in his face that like she was never going to return that love. And that kind of surprised me, because I thought it was sort of being set up, and maybe this will still happen. I thought it was being set up that Narumi like really cared about Hanabi more than we've been led to believe, because of how he dropped her name in that previous episode when he caught Akane like collapsing in the street. But no, instead like it's just Hanabi is like, there's only one person I can go back to now. At least she's like, I would be alone except for I have Mugi. But then we see like Mugi is now invested with Akane, so he has his thing working out, and her like thing with Narumi has completely gone to the wayside and is not working out. So now there's going to be some drama there where who does she let him like pursue his true like his like love that he's been trying to pursue forever, or does she like try to fight for him? We'll have to see. But
because they expected both to be rejected, and that's not
exactly
actually what happened. So now they're like, oh shit, the plan isn't working right. Well, she is.
Yeah,
Hanabi is.
So we'll have to see how that goes.
Oh man, I can't wait to watch that.
Moving on to Fridays, we have Seiren, and the episode is called Brother Complex. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I really am not like in this show anymore.
Aw.
So these are like the last 2 episodes of the Mia Mai arc, who is the gamer girl. So basically we learned that Mia Mai had like a bad past where she like didn't have like a bad past. It's just that like she was like kind of like stuck up a little bit, and she also just like treated girls and guys exactly the same. So she would like come off as she was like flirting to guys, but she wasn't really. She was just being friendly, and all the girls started to hate her because of that, because like all the boys like would think that she was flirting with them, and they would get attracted to her, and like they wouldn't pay attention to the other girls, and it caused a lot of drama. Miyamai invites Shoichi over to her place to play some like Gus Gal, like the Gundam like game, and he meets her brother at the apartment. This is the guy who we had thought was like some like older boyfriend in like a previous like cliffhanger to like the first episode of this arc. But it turns out he's just her brother, and he just like cares about her a lot, and she kind of has like a brother complex, but it's like a very tame one. Like she doesn't want to like have sex with him or anything like a lot of other anime. But she just like looks up to him, and like she grew up playing video games with him, and that's why she's like so attached to video games. It's like they even had like a Sega like Mega Drive console or something in this episode. It was kind of funny. And it's like, yeah, we used to play Sega all the time, blah blah blah.
Sega.
Yeah.
Nostalgia right there every time I hear that.
There's this weird part where like Shoichi like goes into her room with her, and he's like looking at her stuffed animals, and there's like one stuffed animal that has a skirt, and he looks up the skirt of the stuffed animal. I'm like, Shoichi, dude, like you need to calm down right now. I was just like, Jesus, this guy's so like stupidly perverted about the wrong things. There's like a real girl in the room there with him. But like they talk about like their future a little bit, and then Miyamai talks about how like she maybe wants to be a teacher. So that'll come back around. So basically they go to later in the episode, they go to like an out of the way arcade. They play a match of like arcade soccer. They just like relax. And Miyamai basically after this like decides to take a break from games for a little while. And so like he doesn't start meeting up with her in the hallway anymore. But finally, like, so they haven't been seeing each other for a couple days until she shows up one day with like a deer, like stuffed animal that she made herself, from like the Love Deer game that they play. And she's like, I'm going to take part in Comiket to sell my stuffed animals. Do you want to come with me? And he's like, that sounds like a date. And she's like, well, maybe it will be if like Comiket goes well. So the next episode is our second Comiket episode.
What does she mean by that?
She's like, she was just saying it in a nice way. She's like, if you help me out at Comiket and everything goes well, I'll go on a date with you. Kind of.
Oh, I thought, I don't know.
She wasn't
like,
like,
said. I thought you meant like
threatening him or something.
The Comiket thing would be a date if it went well. So Comiket comes, and Miyamai is dressed in this like really skimpy bunny outfit cosplay, which has like a furry patch like on the front of her pants and like a little furry tail and stuff. It's really ridiculous. So like they're trying to sell their stuff, but like she gets separated because she has to go to the bathroom, and like a bunch of photographers like trap her in a corner and start taking pictures of her. And Shoichi's sister saves the day by that happened to Maid Dragon too. Remember?
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, so they're portraying.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
They're doing the exact same thing. So Shoichi's sister comes, and like she's wearing like a trench coat or something, and she opens it up, and she's wearing this like ridiculously like revealing like Gus Gal like Gundam outfit. And so the photographers all flock to her, and they get away. So Miyamai really needs to go to the bathroom. This scene is so ridiculous. She's wearing the bunny costume, and Shoichi she's like, I can't get it off. I don't know.
I was going to ask, does she have problems taking it off?
Yes, she does.
You said it before I could even get it out. Jesus.
But it doesn't go that far, but it's really weird and awkward because she doesn't know where the zipper is. She's like, it's somewhere on the back of his costume. And he's like, okay, I'll look for the zipper. And he like goes around all along the back, and he's like, I can't find it. It must be somewhere like really down there. And she's like, okay. And she like bends over against the wall, spreads her legs, and then takes 2 fingers and spreads like the furry hair at the bottom, like right, like down there. And it's like so ridiculous, this scene. And he looks, he looks and like he's like, okay, yeah, that's where the zipper is. And she's like, okay, now that I know, I can handle it myself. I'm just like, oh god.
That's just awkward.
It was really awkward and weird.
You made me feel awkward describing it.
So anyway, Comic-Con goes well. And
he gets his date.
Yeah, they go to dinner with all the girls, and like it turns out like she thought that was the date, and he's like, no, like, so they're like he walks away because like they go to dinner and they randomly end up at Tsuneki's restaurant. This is the girl from the first route, and he's kind of acting nicely towards her, and like he compliments her and something, and she gets a little bit upset and she like leaves, and then like he goes running after her. And they end up in like this park where like a bunch of people are kissing on the benches in the park at night. And but he like apologizes, and then he actually confesses to her. He's like, I want to go on a date right now because like this is the last chance I have before like you start studying for exams that I'll be able to tell you how I really feel. And she's like, sorry, I'm not really good with this stuff. And so and that's how like he interprets which he interprets as her like rejecting him, even though she was just sort of saying like, I'm not really good with this like romantic stuff. And he looks up at like the moon in this really dopey scene, and he's like looking up, and then she decides to like get up on her tippy toes and like kiss him like on the Adam's apple, like just like it's just really weird. Like I don't know if you're about your Adam's apple.
If a girl's going to be kissing you on the Adam's apple, you both are either probably naked or on your way to being naked and having sex, because otherwise that would just be really awkward.
It's like a really like kind of sensitive like area. Like you have like this, I feel like humans have like this instinct that if anything touches their Adam's apple, like they have to like be in like fight or flight mode because like somebody's gonna like cut their neck or something, or like an animal's like trying to like bite their throat. It's like an animal brain instinct. At least I have this. So it felt like really awkward to me when she was doing that. But anyway, like, so they get together, and then it turns out like this is the last episode of this arc. So they go 10 years in the future. And so Shoichi is now a bus driver. And this kind of harkens back to like they had played this bus game at one of the arcades in a previous episode. So he turned into a bus driver, and he's dropping off his daughter at school, and Miyamai is like the daycare teacher or the kindergarten teacher for their daughter. And it's kind of sweet. And that's it though. I mean,
how old's your daughter?
Like really young, like elementary or less.
Man, I was going to say, if it was 10 years, then they totally did it that night.
Oh, Jesus.
I was right. My theory was right.
Oh, man. Yeah, you might be right. So anyway, that's Seiren. And so it's going into the final arc now. And I guess I'll keep watching it, but I'm like, I like this arc better than the first one, but the first one was really bad. So I'm not sure if I'm really enjoying this show, but I'll keep with it. So let's move on to Youjo Senki.
Saga of Tanya the Evil. Ooh, episode 7, the battle of the, how do you say this? Fjord?
Fjord. It's like a
fjord.
Yeah.
Is that German?
Norwegian or Swedish word. Yeah. I think it's a Norwegian word. I actually don't know. I'd have to look it up. While you talk about the episode, I will look it up.
That sounds good, because I'm not exactly sure what it is. Something to do with like a bay type area, but it's probably specific. So this one starts off with an interesting scene, and I'm going to refer to this guy as Old Dude because he's just Old Dude. I think it's better than his real name. He's sending his daughter and wife to America away from the war. He's on the opposite side of Tanya, one of the other countries. He also gets a present from his daughter, and where the hell she got a machine gun? I don't know. But she gives him a machine gun. She's like 16 maybe.
Daddy, kill everyone.
Yeah, here's a submachine gun. This is World War I. Everybody else just has a rifle, so this thing's just gonna wreck. Oh, he gets his initials on it too.
Yeah, AS. Yeah.
So then you do the OP, and then we get Tanya just straight up pissing off one of her superiors with better tactical knowledge, just basically outshining him in their little meeting. After the meeting, she meets up with some of her other superiors who value her battlefield strategies. We've met these guys before. And they just kind of ask her a couple questions and like want her input on something. And then through this whole little scene, Tanya actually figures out the real attack plan just by a little deduction and studying a map.
Yeah, like, and they're like, who told you that? And only a few officers know
the
that
one
plan.
guy is, and she's like, no, I basically just put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, she figures out they're trying to do like a rear attack offensive, like a sneak attack, like, basically.
Everything they're doing on the front is actually just a distraction. The real battles, coming from the backside.
Yeah.
And the plan is to attack the continent from behind them by the sea. But the problem is they have heavy guns back there in place. And if they tried to come in by sea, their fleet would just get wrecked. It'd be a total massacre. So they send Tanya and her elite battalion out to take out these guns so the fleet can finally land. The catch is Tanya only has like 30 minutes to take out all these guns as soon as she engages before reinforcements arrive, or they'll just have no chance. And old dude is here, of course. So Tanya attacks by paradropping and takes out a couple of guns before the reinforcements are already there. They just have to move to the other side of the base, start to help them. It's another battalion of mages, and it's led by old dude. Tanya engages them with only one company, which is smaller than her battalion, and orders the rest of her battalion to focus on taking out the guns. Of course, as we know so far, Tanya and her company are just badasses, and they are just kicking the shit out of them.
Yeah, they're just wrecking.
Oh god, it's not even. I don't even think Tanya's lost a single troop, or they at least just haven't said it at this point.
Yeah.
And there's just an important little part where old dude recognizes Tanya from a previous engagement. We saw him like an earlier episode or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And he like asks God to like grant him the strength to like defeat her, basically.
Well, that. I don't know. Just maybe it was the way it was interpreted, but but I can't tell when he says God if he's saying Tanya is like a god.
No.
Or when you just say God, almost like a curse word sometimes.
No, I think he was, because he later, and I don't know if it's I forget if it's at the end of this episode, like, or next episode.
The next episode is something happens, but I'm trying to kind of interpret it as I think he's saying it like Tanya is a god of war of sorts.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know, and it's not really important, but it's just a little confusion there. So she's wrecked his entire battalion. Old dude snaps and he goes to pursue Tanya. Dumb move.
Yeah, bad move. Yeah.
Tanya goes to engage him, but stops because then she faces to see that her battalion has taken out the rest of the all the guns.
And now the Navy arrives, like right on cue.
Cue scene of ships pulling into the forge or whatever it's called.
The fjord. And let me just say, the CGI for these battleships did not look good, in my opinion. I don't know if it was just Crunchyroll, but it got really low frame rate, like less than 10 frames per second. And I don't know, I watched a show a couple seasons ago called like High School Fleet, which was a stupid show about lollies running a battleship, but the CGI battleships in that show looked incredible. Yeah, don't ask me why I watched this show, but it was actually a pretty fun show, to be honest. But the battleship scenes in that show looked amazing, and so I was a little bit disappointed with how they looked in Tanya, but it didn't take away that much. It was like a very quick shot. You have to remember, this is the episode that got pushed back a week, so yeah.
Yeah, they had the 6.5 episode or whatever. Yeah, but it's just a scene of the ships coming in, a bunch of the troops landing. They blow up a train that's bringing in reinforcements, yada yada. Cut back to Tanya and old dude. They finish their battle, which is basically just Tanya charging him and sticking a bayonet into his gut. Like, it comes out the backside, I think.
Yep.
He's like, bleh, and he falls. And she takes his submachine gun that the dude got from his daughter. And she's just like, ooh, this will be a fun toy. And then ED happens, and then after the credits, there's a scene of old dude's wife and his crying daughter sitting in front of a radio that explaining that their old country has gotten its ass handed to them, and that the place old dude was stationed at was captured. And it also goes on to say the country will most likely be surrendering anytime now.
Yeah, so you would think that basically the Empire is like on their way to victory at this point. But then the next
take
episode,
out this one country. Yeah.
So the next episode, like, it turns out that like the Republican army, they have some like partisans and like they have some combatants that are like entrenching themselves in a city called like Arene or Aren, I don't know. And so there's like this big like kerfuffle over this because like I guess it's like the rules of war that they're not supposed to attack cities, like especially with like artillery fire.
There's certain rules or whatnot.
Yeah. And so, but Tanya's like, no, we're going to go in there and we're going to like wipe every single one of them out.
Well, she states like a whole bunch of rules and whatnot, but one of the things as an overview for this episode is they really delve into like the morals of war and like the inner conflict of soldiers killing civilians, which is because of war sometimes almost unavoidable.
Yeah, there's this one lieutenant under Tanya named Warren Grants who gets introduced, and he's going to have a lot of problems with the way that Tanya is running this operation. So, like, Tanya and her troops, like, force, like, the Republican, like, combatants to, like, retreat inside this church, and they cause, like, a lot of confusion by, like, Tanya gets on her, like, little radio again and uses her little girl voice to say, like, you need to surrender, and she lists off, like, these, like, rules of war under which, like, they're gonna like attack them if they don't surrender and like present their commanding officer.
And they gave them like a day's notice to like retreat from the city. If you do not, everybody left in the city is considered a soldier or something, so it allows them to attack the city basically is what goes down.
And then but there's like a prisoner of war inside the church with all these like combatants, and he tries to like escape during the confusion, but he gets shot in the back of the head as he's running outside. And they were recording this from the sky. The mages were recording it. So Tanya's like, send that back to headquarters and see what they say. And they're like, they see it and they're like, okay, they give the go ahead for like artillery fire. So there's like, so Tanya orders this artillery attack and it just starts like blowing up like the entire city. There's even this one shot of like an artillery shell landing on this statue of like children playing in an open square. And I was like,
and it gets disintegrated.
That's a little on the nose, but I was like, okay.
Yeah, this is really where they start talking about the morals, because right after this is the they comes up with the scene with the other soldier, and they're asked, like, so the civilians who stayed are now retreating, and the mages from the other group that are there are trying to evacuate them. And basically, Tanya's told to take those mages out, even though that's going to cause them to take out all those civilians at the same time, for the most part. And like this other soldier is just having this like super bad inner conflict about it. And Tanya's trying to explain to him, you're like, you know, some of these will come back as soldiers later on or something like that, and you see this kid just give this like really mean mug shot at lieutenant or something like that, and like and like he just like kind of just sort of snaps, and then you like it cuts to like a black screen and you like hear him fire, and you're kind of left to assume that basically they just murdered a whole bunch of women and children and the rest of those mages.
So they're really like turning Tanya into like a more of a villain than she was even previously here. And then the episode ends like it's like the two like head officers back at like headquarters, like, and like the lower ranked one is like asking the boss like, so there was this paper that I read from like last year that had all of these rules for like potentially attacking a city in a time of war. And did you like use this paper to like base this attack on? And he's like, what if I did? And he's like, well, I guess, did you realize this paper was like written by Lieutenant Tagurachev? And so Tanya had written this paper as part of her like strategic like rules. So I wonder if like Tanya, like the person she used to be, the guy is like using his knowledge of the future to like
I believe he is.
Yeah, like rewrite. Like he knows that like the rules of war changed around this time as well to be able to like firebomb cities and stuff.
Yeah. The show does a good job of letting him use his future knowledge, but be not. I mean, Tanya's kind of OP, but she still somehow feels vulnerable. And I see you have a note of just like how evil they're making Tanya.
Yeah.
But I still see being X as more the bad guy.
I guess that's true. He's just not so present. Like every couple episodes he shows up and it like really impacts everything when he does.
He's just being a selfish prick because Tanya won't recognize him is basically what it boils down to. And after the ending credits, you see old dude's alive. He has somehow survived the bayonet through the gut. And I'm being considerate here, a couple 100 feet fall into water, which at that is just basically slamming into concrete.
Yeah. So he survived, and
we know there were sub-zero water temperatures because there was ice in the last episode.
Yeah, and apparently, like sometime in that or in his coma, he saw God apparently, and God has told him that he needs to defeat that little demon Lully.
Yeah, and then you see his eyes do that yellow flash of like power that Tanya gets sometimes too.
Yep.
So now she potentially has somebody that can actually stand up against her toe to toe.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention that the ED was like really they changed the ED. It was like
this
really somber like tune. So it kind of like echoes the change. Like we're not exactly cheering for Tanya now. Like we're kind of seeing that Tanya is like at least a tool of this really evil empire.
Yeah, before it was just like the opening, which is like this kind of heavy aggressive rock.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the end just it threw me off guard because I watch them once and I skip them.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to stop because I'm like, wait, this is different.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's Tanya. And let's move on to Fuuka.
Great show.
Yeah, Tanya is doing well. Yeah.
And Fuuka, which is not such a great show.
So Fuuka only had one episode because episode 10 got like delayed for I don't know how long, maybe a week or something. I don't know. But episode 9 is called Date. And this is because Koyuki and Yu go on a date. She shows up to the date wearing like a full like ski mask as if she's like a burglar. Like, cause
this episode would have been so much better because they cut to that scene of her just in the ski mask. It's almost creepy. It would have been better if she snapped and she like shanked him and she's like, "You making me love you is making me crazy," and then she runs off and gets away with it. But then Yu's like, he gets a boner from it because he's twisted in the head too. I think that would have been a better show.
You're definitely maybe that'll come in the future.
I think that would have been better. And he doesn't rat her out because he's like, I think I love her some more. She stuck it to me. Now I want to stick it back to her.
Oh God. Well, let's talk about this super awkward, terrible scene at the beginning of this episode. So they're like on their date. And she's taken her ski mask off now, and so basically anybody could tell who she is. But she's, God. So they see like a bell tower, and she's like, this bell tower is like, this tale is like, if you hear it ring together, you're gonna be connected to the person you're with forever. Oh. And he's like, what does that mean, huh? And she's like, oh no, I was joking. And he's like, eh? He says it like 4 times. He just keeps saying like,
he says it 4 times. For the listeners to know, Bcom tells me this. I'm like, really? He's like, please hate watch this episode with me. Because I was about to drop. I'm like, all right, I'll watch it. And I screenshotted all the is and sent them to him. And I was like, I had to, man. I'm sorry.
Oh God, it was so bad.
And it is 4 times. And then after that, I don't know if I was just really conscious about it, but there was a lot of him, and then just the other people just going with wow or ooh or ew. I'm like, am I just being too conscious about it at this point? Or is like this just way over the top? It's the whole episode.
It's not a well-written show. Basically, they have a nice date. Koyuki goes home and she's like, let's do this again. Let's go someplace like you want to go next time. Anyway, he's back with the band, but he was late, and like so everybody's mad at him. And it's like Fuuka is like not.
They're not mad. They just give him some shit.
Yeah, they give him a little bit of shit for being late, and then like just like, oh, just tell us it was your girlfriend next time.
What drummer guy's like? Hey, when this happens to me, you let me off easy, okay?
Yeah, and they're like, but you don't even have a girlfriend. But Fuuka's not mad at him, and he's like, I'm surprised you're not mad at me. And she's like, yeah, everybody else did it for me, so it would have been a waste of time. And then she is just focusing on the music. So her big idea is that she wants to write their next song. Like she wants to write an original song.
Which is cool, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And they're like, but you don't play any instruments or know anything about writing music. And she's like, okay, it's okay. I can sing, so I'll just hum the melody and then we'll figure it out from there. So like she goes home and she like records herself like humming into a microphone.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I'm not in the band. I'm not really musically inclined myself. I don't know. It looks like it's possible to work. I don't know how plausible it is, but
yeah, no, I think there's definitely something in the industry like that real musicians do called like a hum track, where like you just record like a humming, like yourself humming a melody, and then like if the guys like it, you like figure it all out later, and then you like add all the parts. So that's what they do. Like the pianist like says like, okay, I'll transcribe this like to like actual sheet music. And then the guitarist is like, okay, I'll take care of the chords and stuff. And so like they build the song from there. But the thing is that Fuuka still hasn't written any lyrics. So like it takes her a long time. And basically like I think she's drawing inspiration from Koyuki, who said like the secret to her songwriting is that like all of her songs were written thinking about like you and
her unrequited love. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then Fuuka starts acting really stupid because
she's Fuuka,
and like she starts like thinking about like these weird things she's feeling when she thinks about you, and she doesn't know what they mean. Blah blah blah. It's typical.
Has your chest ever felt confused?
She has this scene at the end of the episode where she's like, she sees you and Koyuki on the street, and they're like, oh, and she's like, she hides behind like a bush or something. She's like, my chest feels so confused. And I'm like, no, your chest can't feel confused. Like you can be confused in your brain, or you can feel like constricted or like tight. Like that's what people feel when they're feeling like, you know, like upset and stuff. But no, she's an idiot.
I don't know if that's exactly what she said or if that's just how it got translated.
Yeah, who knows?
I hope that's just how it got translated, because if that's actually how it's written, then yeah, it's. I would have a hard time making a case for it, because it's just clear, like, I don't know.
The only other thing that happened in this episode is that 2 like talent scouts tracked down Fuuka and like had lunch with her and like tell her that like they want to make her into a star for her singing, but they don't want to.
It was just the one. The other was the hedgehog's.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Yeah,
he introduced her. Hedgehog member. What's her face's brother?
Okay, yeah.
Who I think's the hotter chick out of the 3.
But she turns him down because she's like, if you're not going to bring like my bandmates with me, I just want to stay with my band and like pursue my dreams this way. So he's like, okay, but just call me anytime if you change your mind. So that's all set up for the future in case there's like a falling out or something and she wants to go out on her own and match Koyuki. The only other thing I'm noticing is that like Koyuki and Yu's date, like there was no passion between them on that date. It was just like this really like boring date, and like I know she's like a super idol, but like their interactions between each other are so boring. And like even Koyuki kind of notices this, like she's calling Yu on the phone and like he's like talking like so happily about like the band and how like they're practicing the new song, and she has to like hang up on him basically because like she can't take it. Like she just like so jealous.
Yeah, it's obvious that Yu likes Koyuki, but even on their date, Koyuki could have been a hug pillow, as emotionless as he was. Just strap a tape recorder to it that says every 5 minutes, and that it would have been no different.
Yep. So let's move on, because now it's the Bcom talks for like 20 minutes arc of this podcast.
Yeah, I'm thinking of, could I go and finish my laundry? Or
So, I mean...
quick update. I said earlier I had a British friend finally watch Interviews with Monster Girls.
Oh, yeah.
Triad texts me back finally. She says, son of a bitch, now I'm watching multiple episodes and I totally need to go to bed before work tomorrow. And I was like, I told you it's a good show.
Maybe what we'll do is I'll go through Shouwa Genroku, and then maybe we'll do Monster Girls, and then I'll do Sangatsu to break things up a little bit.
Yes, I like that idea.
So let's start with episode 8 of Shouwa Genroku. So this show just keeps getting like way and better by the episode now, and it was already good to start off with. So this episode starts out with this like demonstration of Kyoto style Rakugo, which is interesting because in this style they have like this small partition screen in front of like the performer and a lectern, and he like has this like little wooden clapper that he pounds on the lectern with called a kobayashi, and then he has a haryogi, which is like this fan made of leather, and like he's like making all this noise when he's like doing his Rakugo, and because we've heard
a fan made of leather,
yeah, it's kind of weird, and like
it sounds like some BDSM shit.
Well, he is like smacking the lectern with it, like making tons of noise and like sound effects. It's kind of funny because like I was like watching this and I was like, oh man, this like feels so wrong because we're so used to like the Tokyo style Rakugo. But anyway, back at home, Yakumo and Shinosuke, the little boy, are having a chat about Sukeroku, who Shinosuke didn't know that he had like a real grandfather who looked exactly like him. And Yakumo makes this point that he looks exactly like Sukeroku did. And later Higuchi turns up, and he has a whole lot of like old Rakugo photo albums and flyers from Yakumo's old performances. And there's pictures of like Sukeroku in there and Yakumo performing like way back when. And he's basically asking Yakumo like, by the way, I've been recording some of your performances lately, and I want to know if I have like your permission to like keep doing that or potentially release them. Like everybody around just wants to preserve your art. And like Yakumo had said previously in the season, like he wants to die and take Rakugo with him to his grave. But he says like, okay, I'll think about it. He says like, you're a pest, like you're so annoying, but I'll think about this. Yotaro and Konatsu in another scene are like out enjoying like the night air. And he's like performing some Rakugo while she like leans against his back, but they see Yakumo up on a bridge, and so they run up to him because they're like worried about him. He's like still frail from like all of the things he's been through. So Konatsu like gets up there and like he's like, oh, I'm just like wanted to take a walk, I'm feeling a little bad. And she's like, you're trying to kill yourself, aren't you? Like you can't perform your own Rakugo anymore, so you think you're just gonna throw it all away. And she's like, you haven't atoned for your crime yet, like how dare you like kill yourself. And she like breaks down in tears, and she's just like, don't be like mom and like dad. So it's a really emotional scene, and like Yakumo's saying to himself, oh god, these people like they love me too much, like they won't let me go, like I can't even take my own life. So he's in a really bad place. So everybody else is basically plotting together to get Yakumo to perform as Rakugo against. Like he's so depressed because like his voice won't come out the way it's supposed to, and like has like a dry tongue, and like he can't do what he used to love doing. So they set up this private performance with like all of his like favorite patrons from the past, like people from the inn that he went to perform at, and like the president of the Rakugo Association, all these people at like this Yakuza boss's house. And they drag him there, and he's not going to go in, but Konatsu like forces him in there. And it turns out that Yotaro is going to go first, and he's chosen to perform Sukeroku's last performance. I think it's called Shibahama, from when he was at the inn, like right before the double suicide. And you know, because Yotaro is able to like inhabit another character, he doesn't put himself into his performance, as we've learned from these past few episodes. He like performs like a perfect representation of Sukeroku, and like the lady from the inn who's in the room and is watching like recognizes it. Yakumo like sort of looks on, and like sort of a mix of like fear and sadness in his eyes. And then Konatsu even leans over and realizes like, wait, isn't this my dad? And he's like, yeah, it is. At the end of the performance, like he's imitating Sukeroku's like tears that were real from the performance. But so he himself like breaks down in tears. And Yakumo is like, were those tears really in Sukeroku's performance too? And he's like, yeah, they were. And Konatsu like assures him that they were. And so Yakumo is kind of like reassured by Yotaro's like desire to just like hear his Rakugo again, for him to enjoy Rakugo like he used to. And so Konatsu hands him back a fan that he had dropped when he had collapsed on stage. That was Sukuroku's fan that he's still carrying around to this day. And he begins to perform, but then his performance is interrupted by the police arriving, which is really weird. They finally...
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, the police have finally gotten like a warrant for this Yakuza boss's arrest, and so he's arrested there for violating the gun and sword law or whatever. They finally got a warrant for him. And so it interrupts the whole performance, and like the mob boss like apologizes to Yakumo as he's like leaving, but Yakumo doesn't perform. And so the next episode... the Yakuza boss has been sentenced to like 6 years in prison, and Yotaro is like thinking about doing a prison show at the jail again. I guess he does this really often because if you remember, Yotaro was in prison, and that's how he met Yakumo, was from one of these prison performances. And Yakumo basically gets the idea in his head that, hey, you know what? On a whim, maybe I'll just go do one of these prison performances. And he's talking with Yotaro. He's like really fatalistic, and he's like, you know, I don't wish for much, but like the one thing I do want is like to die doing Rakugo. And the Yotaro tells,
like in the process of like,
yeah, like just like in the process of like doing Rakugo, he just wants to die that way. Yotaro is like, but if you want to die doing Rakugo, you actually have to start doing Rakugo again, you lazy bastard. And so
yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. So Yakumo performs at the penitentiary where the mob boss is staying, and he performs this like really, really sad story about a man who's confined for 100 days, and like he's in there because he was like so selfish, and he didn't realize how much like his like lover cared about him. And by the time he gets out, his lover is like dead and gone and like emaciated and has been killed by like her grief. And as he's like speaking to her in the Rakugo, he sees like the spirit of Miyokichi coming back, and he's sort of like talking about how he is trying to like apologize for the selfishness of his past when he treated Miyokichi badly and like was selfish about having his career, and like turned her away and rejected her and drove her into like the arms of like Sukuroku, and everything went to hell after that. So he's kind of, I think he's basically trying to apologize to her with this performance and like let her go once and for all. And so afterwards, he goes to the old Rakugo, or he goes to Yotaro's Inokori performance, which Yotaro has been asking him to come see this performance forever because he thinks like he's found his new Rakugo. And Yakumo's like in the audience, and he's like being an old bastard, and people are actually surprised that he's there, but he only stays for a few minutes because he's listening to Yotaro, and he's like, this isn't very good. Like Higuchi catches him on the way out, and he says like, what did you think of Yotaro's Inokori? And he's like, no, it was just totally disagreeable. And he's just doing this light crap that like he wants to just make people laugh or cry. He's not putting any of himself into the story. Like, it's different from Yakumo's Rakugo. It's a different kind of Rakugo. He doesn't like it. He gives Sukuroku's fan to Higuchi, and he's like, would you give this to Yotaro? He'll understand what it is. And so it's clear that he's like off to like go kill himself. He goes to the old Rakugo theater.
Jeez.
And it's like closing down for the night. And he takes the stage and lights 2 candles, and he performs the Shinigami, which is like the god of death story. And he starts like talking, and like he collapses in the middle of the performance, and he like hears somebody clapping in the audience, and it's like Sukuroku's spirit. At least it appears to be. And like Sukuroku's spirit comes up on stage, and he's like, and his eyes turn red like a demon. He's like, you haven't gone through with taking Rakugo with you like you said you were going to. And he like forces Bond's hand around like the burning candle and forces him to throw it out into the middle of the Rakugo theater. So the whole theater lights on fire, and then Sukuroku turns into like the actual god of death. He's like a skeleton with like Medusa like tentacles coming out of his head. And he's telling him, like, this is what you deserve. Like, you need to die here, and Rakugo will die with you, and all this stuff.
Did he take some LSD before he started this shit?
No, but he's a very old man, and he has the mind of a storyteller, obviously. And he is like distraught and like he's not all there. So he's seeing this self and all of this stuff in his brain. But then at the last minute, as like the theater's on fire, Yotaro runs in and like Bon is like on the stage like battling with this demon, and he's trying to grab Yakumo's hand, and Yotaro's like yelling at him, and Yakumo finally reaches out and like is saved. And like he thought that was like the god of performance that he met. Like he's been talking about trying to meet the god of performance, and the only way he'll meet him is by like facing death. And so he thinks that the god of performance was this Shinigami who just basically told him to burn it all down. But anyway, Yotaro saves him from the flames, and that's where that episode ends. So it just keeps getting like way more intense and intense every episode.
So crazy. The old theater that they wanted to tear down because it wasn't up to earthquake codes is now burnt to the ground.
Yeah, and I can't remember if they'd already made the renovations and now it's like all burnt to the ground.
Oh god.
But maybe they hadn't. I don't think they have.
I would say to do earthquake code, you'd have to build from the ground up.
Yeah. So let's go into Monster Girls so I can talk a little less.
So you could take a breather.
Yeah, right. So let's see. So episode 7.
Which is the one you wrote about, and I wrote about episode 8, so keep talking.
Yeah, but you watched this too. So Hikari like sees somebody suspicious walking around the school, and she's like, yeah, it looks like a bear with shaggy hair and eyes that look like a beast targeting its prey. And Takahashi like listens to her and is like, so it's a bear?
Yeah, like she just describes the bear.
Yeah, she describes it also to like Machi and oh god, what's the snow girl's name? Yuki. And which literally means snow, so I should have been easily remembered that. But yeah, they're both like, oh, it's a bear you're talking about?
Yeah, and I'm confused about the boy they run across, just the way he acts.
Yeah. So
I don't understand why he acts the way he acts.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. There's like this little blonde, like part German boy who's running around the school. And he's crying. Well, when we first meet him, he's like crying in the hallway, and Sakie like stumbles across him and tries to like comfort him. And at one point, like he actually like touches her hand, and she like freaks out because like she's a succubus, but he has like no reaction to her whatsoever.
Yeah, and you later on in the episode find out like he's immune to succubuses for some reason. Yeah, so his name is Kurtz, and and finally that the person who looks like a bear comes around the corner of the hallway, and like Hikari's like, go get him, and like it's so he like jumps and does this like crazy martial arts move and like almost takes down this guy. His name is Ugaki-san. He's like just like a big dude with like shaggy hair and like eyes that look like a beast. And it turns out he's a detective who's particularly specialized in dealing with succubus or succubi. And Kurtz is his weapon against succubi because he doesn't react to their aphrodisiac effect. I think. Yeah, and I guess he has a backstory with Saki also.
Yeah, and
like he's known her since she was like an elementary or middle schooler, and he's dealt with her, and he's particularly surprised in how well she's fitting in with society because, you know, being a succubus, if she's careless at all, you know, showing skin or just accidentally brushing up against people, you know, can cause major problems.
Yeah, so like a lot of the succubus actually are like criminals, and his task is like to deal with these succubus that are criminals, and apparently a lot of them are creating these situations where they're pretending that they've been like molested so they can get money or something, which seems like a really shitty thing to do. Which
is actually a thing in crowded places like that.
I guess so, yeah. So Kurtz is his weapon for dealing with succubuses who are trying to do this. Like, I guess he's like the bait, but he's also, I think the deal is that Kurtz is gay. Like, I guess he's a gay little boy, so he doesn't react to the aphrodisiac effect because he's not into girls. That's my guess, anyway.
Well, next episode, we're led to believe that even females are affected by other female succubi.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. So maybe that kills that theory. I don't know. But anyway, Takahashi and Ugaki have this conversation about like working with monster girls and like all this stuff, and it's funny because also Ugaki tells Saki like like she's like telling him about how she has like a guy that she likes now, and he's like really surprised because she like never says this before. And she's like, yeah, I like him because like I touched him, he didn't react, and he's like, he didn't react. The only way he didn't react is if he's gay or if he's
is that what he said?
Yeah, that's literally what he said.
That is right.
Yeah, so that's the other reason I thought Kurtz was gay. But yeah, and so she's like, wait, so then Takahashi was like just hiding it? And he's like, yeah, he was probably just hiding his feelings. And she's like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And then she doesn't know how to feel about that because like the reason she liked him is because he didn't react, but of course he did feel it.
And just in like some usual love manner, she then reconvinces herself that she still likes him.
Yeah. There's like a funny scene at the end of this. So like that whole scene was like Takahashi and Ugaki before they were like in the smokers lounge.
They totally bro it out.
Yeah, and then
because they both have such an interest in like what are they? What do we refer to them all? Just monster girls?
Demi-chan's monster girls. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like so Hikari like runs up to them after they leave the smoking lounge and just like, oh, you guys stink, and then she's like, they run away. She runs away.
It's just one of those cute, goofy scenes.
Yeah, that was cute. All right, so move on to the next episode, which is Demi-chan's Want to Learn.
Yeah, I think this might be my favorite episode so far.
Oh, cool. We'll get into it.
They do which everybody's watching anime and most likely listening to this podcast, you know what the grade rankings thing is that they always do. They post up the rankings of the grades and whatnot. So they do that one in this one. Machi gets 5th, and Hikari, to nobody's surprise, has basically failed because that's her character.
Yeah.
It's a very funny scene. Takahashi shows up and he comments on how Machi did and that Yuki did very well herself. But then Takahashi uses Himari's full name in a very deadpan way, like how your parents like say your full name, and you're like, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
And just basically gets on her for not performing well in any subject, and that because she's a vampire doesn't mean your exams should be read too, which is just a little joke. It causes Yuki to try to stifle her laughter because she thinks it's kind of funny to see Hikari get like scolded a little bit, I guess. But
yeah.
It's killing Hikari. She can't take this. She wants nothing but praise from Takahashi. So like she panics. She's like, can I have a hug and you not yell at me? And Takahashi just complete 180 turns and walks away. It just crushes Himari. She just falls to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, Yuki's like, is this a skit or something?
Yeah, then there's just this little part where Hikari tackles Yuki and like a manga falls out of her bag, which is just the setup for the next scene. Mm-hmm. Yuki, Yumi? Did I just mistype here? I did.
Oh, yeah, it's Yuki. Yeah.
Yeah. Darn you. But we also, I don't remember if it was here or later on, but we found out that, oh no, my mouse is messing up. Okay, got it. It fixed itself. That Machi got like, no, I said 5th. I did say that. Yeah, Machi got 5th. Hikari basically failed. And Yuki did very well herself, which is important later on. Yuki then notices like that. I don't think you know it's a manga yet, but she notices it's missing. She runs out in the hall to find it, but Sato has just found it. And it's just basically a scene where Yuki is trying not to let on that she really likes gag manga.
Yeah.
And the scene's okay. Like she's trying to play off, but she's doing a terrible job.
Yeah, she keeps like breaking out into laughter and then pretending she wasn't laughing.
Yeah, like this is a lot of her stifling, putting her hand over her mouth, being like, just trying not to laugh, you know. You get a flashback scene with Sato, which I thought was just hilarious.
Yeah, so Sato, when she was like a schoolgirl, had like a boy who like was trying to like cause some problems for her because she was a succubus, and like
he's the school punk.
Yeah, he was like a punk,
making a name for himself.
And like she's like describing the scene and how bad it was, and then Yuki's like, "Oh no, that sounds terrible," and she's like, "Oh no, it was fine. I knew judo," and she did like a judo throw on this guy and just like put him in an arm bar and just like started making him feel like a ton of pain, but like halfway through his like yelling and screaming for like about pain, he starts yelling like, yes, please make it hurt more, make it hurt more.
He's like, stop, and then please don't stop. Hurts, but don't stop. It's like a darkness scene basically, but
yeah, and all the classmates,
we know she has the aphrodisiac effect, so it's just a really funny scene.
All the classmates looking on like start like looking at him like a freak, and so he ruined his reputation after that.
Yeah, he lost his bad boy reputation, and nobody messed with Sato again after that. So like she didn't get bullied or anything for it.
That was pretty dope.
Then they just do a study scene, and Machi makes a joke that if they study more, Takahashi will praise them more. It's set up for a joke at the end. It's just more of a cute visual scene, like Machi and Yuki are studying really hard, and you know Hikari's not. She's like doing that thing where they balance a pencil in their upper lip or whatnot. And that's basically the same, but it's just more of a setup for later on.
Well, Takahashi is like reading like that vampire book.
Oh yeah, vampire book, and it's titled "The Desire to Suck." No, what? I can't read my own writing. I'm terrible.
He reads that the desire to suck blood is a combination of wanting blood and wanting to bite, and so basically he asks like Hikari if like she has any like preferences for the type of arm that she wants to gnaw on.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because it's him and the 3 other girls in his little office.
Yeah, and he's like, and she's like, okay, we're gonna have like the first annual Arm I Want to Bite championship. It's between Machi, Yuki, and Takahashi.
Yeah. So they just do a little skip. They start with Machi's arm. She's like, it's muscular and smooth. But she loses a few points for not having a neck.
Yeah, that was kind of mean.
Hikari says it's something she likes to look at while she's chewing on an arm.
She's like, I don't want to bite their neck.
That's her words.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, she's like, it kind of gets to me when I'm looking at their neck.
I have the quote, looking at the neck gets to me.
Oh, yeah.
She gives her 65 points and compares her to a chicken tenderloin because sometimes you just want one.
I was laughed out loud.
I'm okay. So they move on to Yuki. She's like, Yuki's arm is soft, moist, and its coolness makes it a true Yuki original. She gets 93 points, and she compares it to like soft ice cream.
Like mochi ice or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. Yuki asks about her sister's arm, and Hikari's like, well, I've been chewing on it so long, it's just hard to compare. She says something like it's for when your mouth gets lonely.
Yeah.
Takahashi says,
like gum?
Gum, so... Hikari writes down priceless gum.
Yeah, like on the like scoreboard that she's keeping track of, like she doesn't even get a point total. It's like her point total is priceless, and then the food she's like is gum.
I think this is the scene that really sold me. I just think it's hilarious.
Yeah. So then it's Takahashi's turn, and holy shit. So she like looks at it. She's looking at his arm like she looked at the other girl's arm. And she's like, oh my God, it's hard and it's thick. And I think hair might get in my teeth. And then he's like, please don't say those 3 things in public.
And I wrote Rafflecopter because I had to pause it. I lost my shit. He's like, please don't ever say that in public.
That joke got me too. That was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, and it's funny because Yuki starts losing her shit also because we know she loves gag manga.
Yeah.
So she's over there. You see her in the background, hand over her mouth, and she's just shaking. She's laughing so hard.
Yeah.
And I really like this joke because it's a great sex joke that's delivered in a manner without sexualizing these girls.
I agree.
Or their relationship with the teacher.
Yeah, I think that's why I thought it was like totally fine. I liked it a lot.
And I love that they did that. I'm like, thank you. You can have your sex jokes. You just got to know how to do them right.
Yeah.
But then it's even funnier because Hikari fails him. And he's like, is this payback for earlier?
Yeah.
Where he gave her a bunch of shit, for failing or whatnot. Then it still keeps going. There's a little funny. Takahashi's sitting here. He's having some inner monologue. He's thinking about Sato and how she's a succubus. It would make sense to be gnawing on her because of her aphrodisiac effect would be the best. And he has it's a pretty long monologue. So the girls hear nothing about this. And then he says, it seems like Sato sensei would taste the best. And he's not really saying it to them. He's just kind of saying it out loud.
Yeah.
And all the girls are like, it's just, to them, it's totally out of context. They gang up on it.
Yeah.
And they're just, It's just a funny scene.
Hikari just starts yelling, "Ecchi, ecchi, sensei no ecchi." He's like, "You're a huge pervert." And he's like, "No."
Yeah. Then we just do a hard cut to next scene. It's the new grades are up. It's proficiency test or something like that. Hikari sees that her sister has been knocked down to third place. She was second before. So like Hikari gets all huffed up and she's like, I'm just gonna beat up and take revenge on whoever knocked my cute sister down. And she's like, she's making a little roar and she's going forward, things like that. But then she looks up and she reads the first place name.
And it's Machi.
And it's Machi. And then she's stunned. She's staring at. She's lost all her gung ho, and she's just getting ready just to beat up whoever she needed to. Machi and Yuki walk up, and they're like, "Hikari, what's wrong?" And then she just looks at Machi. And she's like, "You're a horrible person," and runs away yelling, like, "I thought you were joking." And then just ends with the screenshot of Machi's name in first place. I just so love this episode. I thought the whole thing was funny. I loved what they did with the sexualized joke, but it didn't sexualize little girls. It didn't do anything about their relationships. It was just her saying something that definitely sounded wrong if it was taken out of context.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun episode.
Yeah, I just really loved that episode.
All right, let's finish this out with Saturdays, and March comes in like a lion. So we had episodes 18 and 19. So episode 18, so each episode, March comes in like a lion, covers like 2 chapters. So basically like half an episode is about one thing and the next half is typically about another thing. So they're in the middle of still like this Lion King shogi tournament arc. The like winner of the shogi championship is the Lion King, which is funny. But so Rei is like still in this like study group with the challenger to the champion, Shimada, and like 2 other students. And like they're arguing about like what move to make, and like because this show has this conceit where like shogi pieces are like different cats. It's funny because
kitties.
Yeah. So like while like these 2 students are like battling over the moves that they're talking about, in the background there's like these 2 cats fighting, but it's like a cat Darth Vader and a cat Yoda, and they both have lightsabers and they're like yeah, and they're like lightsaber battling, and like for some reason Vader has like a purple lightsaber like he's like Samuel L. Jackson or something, but I'll let it slide because it was just so hilarious.
Well, they couldn't be too similar. So
yeah, exactly. That's the other reason. So yeah, but eventually like it's funny, like the Vader and Yoda just like devolve into like a cat fight and their paws are like going everywhere. But anyway. But like Rei like comes up with like a different solution for the whole problem that they're like arguing about. He's like, actually, like this board is already in trouble. Like it seems like disturbing to me. And that catches Shimada's attention because the champion shogi player who he's up against said something similar in a recent match. Like he said, like, this looks disturbing to me. Like, or like in a post-match session, he said like that board position looked disturbing to me. So he's starting to see that Rei thinks a little bit like the champion. And so he's like a good person to go up against. So he invites Rei over the next day to practice alone without the other 2 students. And he like gives him his best shot. And there's this amazing scene where they're having a practice match.
Give me your best shot.
And
fire away.
Gosh damn it. And
I got to keep myself amused while you finish off this episode.
Yeah, it's fine. Rei does this Shaft does this amazing bit of animation where every time Shimada puts down a piece, the entire art style goes into like grayscale and black and white, except for these waves that come crashing into Rei. And it's like, so the intensity of Shimada is like making these like tidal waves of like thought and like intelligence and like strategy come at Rei. It's this really, really beautiful scene of animation. It's something that only Shaft really does stuff like this. It was really cool. And there's this whole theme running through this show. Anytime that Rei is in trouble or depressed, he's always like underwater. And this is just like another one of those scenes. And he like wakes up like later that day. He's exhausted from having played a rank A player for so long. And he like almost like fell asleep in his bathtub and it was like drowning. Yeah, but he's okay. And just, he realizes that like he needs to like keep working harder. And then so like later in the episode, Ray has a nice moment with like his school teacher, who basically said, "Hey, like you advanced to next grade."
Bow, chicka, bow, wow. That's
No, it's a guy.
Oh. Well, that's. Oh, I mean, still.
He's kind of been taking care of Ray this year because like Ray has like been missing a ton of classes, but like he's been supporting his like shogi career and everything. So Ray's like really depressed. He's like, I didn't like advance any ranks in shogi this year, and like I barely passed through school, and like I'm just really not doing anything well. And like his teacher's like, shut up, like you are cooking for yourself, like you're living on your own, you're cooking all your own meals, you're like doing taking out the garbage, paying rent, making money, like you're doing way more than you would ever be asked to do or should be asked to do. It's like incredible what you're doing. So he just gives Ray some perspective about his life. And at the end of the episode, Hina and Momo, two of the younger sisters who Ray's like befriended, come over to his apartment to get back like a bento box that they had lent to him. And they ask him about like this fight that he had in the previous episode that they saw. He was fighting on the street, like verbal fight with his foster sister Kyoko, and it scared them because they didn't realize that he had like any, like they thought it was his girlfriend, but then he's like, no, it was just my foster sister. And he explains that like sometimes family like has to fight and then things will get better. But so they go home and they're happy and they're relieved. But they tell the older sister about this, and she's like, there probably is something more to this that we should find out. So anyway, next episode, Shimada like tells us all about his past in this episode. So he grew up in this snowy town called Yamagata, and he didn't have any kids to play with. So he was like forced to just play like video games or read manga or do other stuff until like a few old men from his town like taught him how to play shogi one day. And so it's like all of these other things he talked about how they have an end, like video games come to an end quickly and manga comes to an end. Apparently he's never played The Witcher 3, by the way, because video games don't come to an end quickly. Maybe from that time period they did, but still. So like basically he quickly becomes like a shogi prodigy, and like his whole town like stands behind him because I guess Yamagata was like the birthplace of shogi or something like that, and they want to get another master like no matter what it takes, and they think that Shimada is the best chance. So like it's this great backstory for him about like where he's from, and like he would just grind it out every day. He was just a super hard worker. He would take like an overnight bus to Tokyo to play shogi matches against like these really high quality players who had way more advantages than he did, but he would grind it out. And even when he was getting like discouraged, like the old men from his town would always like show up and like support him and like bring him food and like and just like smile and like tell him like they're like all their hopes are with him and stuff like that. So you see that he's carrying all of this into like these tournament matches, and in this episode he's fighting in the fourth match of the tournament. So he and Ray get on a train and go to Kyoto, where the tournament is, this match is taking place. Apparently all the matches take place in like different cities, and there's like several days or like a week in between each match so they can like recover from the match. That's how intense these matches are. And so Ray and Shimada practice, and Ray is like, is this even helping you? Like I'm rank C1 and you're rank A, and like Shimada like tells him again, like, no, like your disposition is very similar to that of Shoya. You have very similar viewpoint and style, and so like Shoya is like this tall bird, he says, like an egret or something, like a very tall, graceful bird, but like it flies up in the air. And he talks about this story of like the tortoise and the hare, and like he says like Shoya flies even higher than like the hare does. Like I feel like I'm even below the tortoise. I'm like a bug crawling on the ground, like looking up at this guy as he like flew past me in the shogi hall and like became a success like way before I did, as I was still clawing my way up. And so they get to Kyoto and they get to the hotel, and like the Shimada is like a wreck health wise, and so like they're just trying to like get him to sleep, and Ray gets a room with Smith, who is this like sort of like American guy with like blonde hair, who like says, he makes a joke like when Ray shows up, and he's like, I was just about to have some luxurious me time, and now you show up, and like Ray panics because he's like always socially awkward, and then there's this very
me time. Was he gonna?
Yes,
masturbate?
Like with a lady, he's like basically hinting at, but there is no lady there. But the funny thing is that
the lady is
the lady
Palm
is his
and her
kitten.
5
No,
friends.
the lady is his kitten. He loves his kitten like so much, it's ridiculous. And so like he's actually on the phone when Ray is in the room, and he's like, it sounds like he's talking to his girlfriend, but what he's really talking to is his cat sitter, and he's saying things like, wait, she's sitting on your lap, and like Ray's like, wait, should I be here? Is he yelling at his girlfriend, or like is he getting cheated on right now? And he's like, she's sitting on your lap.
The misunderstanding.
Yeah, she never sits on my lap. Like, what does that mean? He gets like really upset, and like he goes out to get a drink. And it was also a really funny moment.
He gets upset because his cat sits on somebody
Exactly,
else's lap and
yeah.
won't sit on his.
And she like, it's funny because like the cat like meows at the cat sitter in a certain way that upsets him, because like she's like, I can't believe she makes that same sound to other people. No, he's like so jealous.
Oh my god, that's actually kind of funny.
Yeah, and like before, like when Ray was coming into the hotel room, like after being like really flustered, there was this really quick scene where it showed Smith carrying Ray in, but Ray was in like a little cat form because he was like sort of like just feeling embarrassed, and so they drew him as a cat, like a little kitten that he was being held up by the neck and carried into the room like against his will. It was really cute. But anyway, at the end of this episode, like the 4th match finally starts, and that's where it leaves off. But yeah, it's really intense. It's really fun to see this tournament arc. Like Shimada has been such a great character. I think some people might be upset that like it's not focusing as much on Ray's like shogi now because like he lost in the tournament. But Shimada is such a great character to explore that, and Ray is learning so much about himself through this arc that it's still a really great show. So yeah, that is this week in anime, or the last 2 weeks in anime.
All right. So what's your favorite / recommended shows still this season? Has it changed at all?
My favorite now by far is Rakugo. I don't think I would have said that. Actually, not by far. But my favorite now is Rakugo. I feel that like Scum's Wish has gotten a little bit over the top, like at times the past couple weeks. Like, so I'm still not sure where that show is going, but Rakugo has just surged ahead of it. So those are my 2 favorites still, and then of course Nyanko Days. How can I forget? And then just like the other shows I've mentioned, like Little Witch Academia and KonoSuba and stuff. But what about you?
Yeah, I'm still going to recommend KonoSuba. That's, man, I don't know. It's my favorite shows would be between KonoSuba and probably Interviews with Monster Girls or Saga of Tanya the
Yeah,
Evil.
those are the ones you mentioned the most for sure.
And all 3 of those are 3 entirely different shows. So I really have a hard time trying to rank them.
Yeah.
I definitely rank those 3, and I will still recommend Little Witch Academia and Scum's Wish also, because those are 2 really good shows, even though I just killed episode 8 of Little Witch Academia.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully that episode is just like a drop in the bucket, because we have so many episodes of this show to look forward to.
Right. How many episodes is it supposed to be? Do you know?
I think it's like 22 or 24. Let's see if it says on my anime list. Little Witch Academia, 25. I was wrong. 25 episodes.
Ooh.
So yeah.
Oh, and just as a little side note, I want to just real quick on Tanya, Saga of Tanya the Evil. It's made by Studio Nut,
Yeah.
which we don't know anything about. And as you were reviewing your shows that I had no input on, I was looking up absolutely everything possible about this studio, and the best I could come up with was 3 things they've worked on. One of them obviously being Saga of Tanya the Evil, so that's a big plus. The other the first one was Argivolin.
Oh yeah, I remember that show. I didn't watch it.
That's like 2014.
Yeah.
But to add another plus, just before they did Saga of Tanya the Evil, they did a One Punch Man Road to Hero OAV.
Really? I didn't know that.
And that's it. That's the only information I can find on this company.
God, yeah.
So I would say they had a rough start, and then they got a lucky break with the One Punch Man OAV, and then their Saga of Tanya Evil's turning out great. So, like, I'm going to keep Studio Nut on my radar.
Yeah, I mean, this is really good for a first show. Like, I had my... I had some, like, I don't know, hold-ups, like, the first couple episodes of Tanya, but, like, they've clearly, like, been cleared up now. The only thing about Tanya is, like, it's very much turning now, it seems like, into, like, a very kind of standard military show in some ways, and I kind of want to get back to, like, Tanya's craziness a little bit more.
Yeah, but I like how they're doing, like, they're bringing, like, morals into it.
Yeah.
And, like, that's just neat. I was about ready to say, like, military stuff, but then that would have been a military show.
Yeah. So let's end this unnaturally long episode. Somehow we cut down the shows and we went longer than usual. Jesus.
We still have 24 pages of Google document notes. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube to get updates on new podcasts or videos, and follow us on Twitter at Nerdom and Other for updates as well. And see you guys later.
As well as on iTunes and Google Play. See you next week. Actually, 2 weeks from now. I'm gonna get that right one of these days.
Bi-weekly.
Peace.
Later, guys.